Chapter 353. Coffin Bearer. At this time, the three cultivators who had been swaggering and arrogant at the beginning could be said to be completely dumbfounded. Their faces were pale, and they had a look of despair. Even when they spoke, their teeth were trembling. They were so shocked that they could not speak. It seemed that they would faint on the spot at any time. Impossible, impossible. How could the coffin bearer be here? It's over. It's really over this time. Coffin bearer. Heavens, corpse demon. Wasn't corpse demon sealed and killed? How could it be here? I don't want to die. Damn demon king. If you want to leave, then leave. Why did you have to seal this place? Break, open for me. Driven by fear, the three cultivators began to madly attack the invisible restriction behind them. All sorts of talismans and various magical tools they had collected were thrown at the restriction without any hesitation. They immediately caused them to self-destruct. The destructive power that erupted caused the surrounding space to rumble violently. Dozens of magic tools were thrown out without hesitation, and they actually managed to blast open a hole in the invisible restriction. Without even thinking, the three of them directly passed through the hole, and with a wave of the bone spears in their hands, they were about to break through the air and flee for their lives. Crash! However, the large man who carried the strange black coffin on his back and gave off an unapproachable aura looked at the three of them with his lifeless eyes. He raised his left arm, and the black iron chain wrapped around his arm instantly swung forward like a snake. The iron chain extended forward without limit and instantly extended over 100 jaws. It didn't seem fast, but in the blink of an eye, it crossed the boundary of the void and appeared in front of the three cultivators. The three cultivators didn't even have time to react before the chain wrapped around them, and the black corpse aura on the chain covered them. Clatter! The chains rolled back, and the black coffin on the burly man's back flickered with countless strange talismans. The tightly closed lid of the coffin suddenly opened, and the three cultivators on the chains were sucked into the black coffin. With a bang, the black coffin closed again, and a dense corpse aura filled the air. All life within a 10-meter radius was devoured by the black coffin. Keep away all living things, and all living things will perish. The three core formation cultivators didn't even have the time to scream before they were swallowed up by the black coffin. From beginning to end, they didn't even have the chance to make a decent counterattack. It could be said to be extremely terrifying. A strange aura pervaded the air. Crash! After the three of them were sucked into the black coffin, the corpse chi around the black coffin and the burly man seemed to have thickened a little. However, the burly man did not stop moving. His eyes were still filled with a deathly light as he dragged the heavy, pitch-black chain and walked forward step by step. Wherever he went, all life was extinguished. No living thing could survive. The flowers and plants withered instantly. The ancient trees withered and decayed at a speed visible to the naked eye. No matter what was in front of him, he continued to walk forward without changing his direction. The pitch-black barren land behind him was a straight line, without the slightest bend in the slightest. When he walked past, the strange coffin bearer's footsteps slightly paused. He raised his head and glanced at the floating cloud ship. Those ice-cold eyes without a trace of life were like the gaze of the god of the underworld. It made one's heart feel ice-cold and suffocated. However, for some unknown reason, he didn't stop. He continued to walk forward with determination. All the plants in front of him were extinguished. All living things were sucked into the black coffin. What a terrifying gaze. It actually made me feel as if I could smell the scent of death in an instant. Di Shirtian's expression was grave. The tiger soul on his back was constantly trembling without any warning. The low roars of the tiger were continuous. It seemed to be frightened, but also seemed to be excited. It was a trembling cry that wanted to challenge him. The tiger soul was now a demon weapon at the level of a magic treasure. It had a spirituality that it didn't have before it was promoted. If it continued to be nurtured and nourished, there would be a day when it would become an artifact soul like the underworld. It would become the saber spirit of the tiger soul. Although this wisp of spirituality was still very weak, it was born with an unyielding fighting spirit that would not yield to any powerhouse. Even when it sensed the terrifying aura emanating from the mysterious coffin-carrying man, it was still not afraid. It let out a soft cry and was not afraid to fight. He gently patted the tiger's soul on his back to calm it down. He watched the coffin-bearer's back as he left. That strange black coffin. I don't know what kind of strange demonic creature that black coffin is. I can feel that there is an inconceivable power in it. Corpse chi. Such a dense and terrifying corpse chi. Could it be that this burly man isn't a living person, but a zombie? It was unknown when an ancient mirror had appeared in Medusa's hand. She played with it in a practiced manner. Those star-like eyes, which seemed to be able to freeze everything, involuntarily revealed traces of shock. If one were to look carefully, one would discover that an enormous amount of demonic chi had already covered her entire body, ready to be spat out at any moment. It could be seen how afraid she was just now. Zombie. Tion shook his head and smiled bitterly. Zombies weren't things that could be easily played with. They carried the resentment, evil, and filth of heaven and earth. They were reborn with an endless stream of chi and an undying obsession. They were immortal and indestructible. They didn't exist in the 3 realms or the 6 realms. They existed alone outside of the 3 realms. They used endless blood to vent their resentment. Almost no one in the world could restrain the experts among the zombies. Of course, this only applied to the zombie kings who were blessed by the heavens. For example, in the cultivation world of the continent, there was a branch of corpse cultivation. They used a secret method to refine dead bodies into zombies. They didn't fear death and didn't feel pain. Their bodies were like copper skin and iron bones that couldn't be penetrated by swords and spears. If they refined a life-origin corpse deity, they might be able to refine a terrifying corpse deity. That would be truly terrifying. Thinking of some memories about zombies, Tion secretly became more vigilant. He shook his head and threw all these messy thoughts to the back of his mind. He said, forget it. After all, there are too many inconceivable things on the Zijin continent. There are all kinds of mysterious places. No one knows how many strange things there are in this vast and boundless territory. As long as this coffin carrier doesn't attack us, we don't need to think too much. Sooner or later, we will find out about his background. After he finished speaking, he took a deep look at the strange figure. Then, he retracted his gaze and looked at the group of tigers on the boat. How did you get chased by 3 immortal cultivators? Where did you live? King. Upon hearing Sakura's question, all the tigers in the surroundings started to sob. Their gazes towards him contained both excitement and respect, as well as deep grief and hatred. After listening to the narration of the 3 tigers, who had already cultivated to the early stage of demonic beasts, he finally understood the whole story. It turned out that there was a valley 100 miles away from here, which they called the Tiger's Roar Valley. At some point in time, a group of tigers moved into the valley. At first, there were not many of them, but slowly, gradually, they reproduced on their own. In addition, the tigers in the nearby forest heard the news and moved into the valley. Gradually, it became a breeding ground for tigers, and they gathered into a group of tigers. It was said that at its peak, the total number of tigers reached hundreds. They were the well-deserved overlords of that forest. 1,000 years ago, the terrain of the Tiger's Roar Valley suddenly changed. A large amount of spiritual energy emerged from the valley. Although it could not be compared with the myriad Demon Valley, it was still abundant. Under such spiritual energy, the tigers began to instinctively change. First, they were born with spirituality. Then, they began to instinctively absorb the spiritual energy in the valley. After absorbing the spiritual energy, they realized that their strength and abilities were constantly increasing, making them even more powerful. In the natural world, strength was the only law. After knowing the benefits of absorbing spiritual energy, they all began to absorb it. Those who were born with spirituality could be found everywhere. It was very prosperous. Until now, there were still hundreds of tigers in the valley. All of them had spirituality. They could be said to be blessed by nature. If nothing unexpected happened, They would continue to live like this and live as usual if they did not leave the valley. However, this peace was not broken by the three cultivators. The cultivators who could fly, use all kinds of magic arts, and use all kinds of magical instruments and magic weapons were simply like gods. As soon as they entered the valley, they went on a killing spree. They killed the tigers as soon as they saw them. The tigers used to be successful in killing ordinary beasts, but when it came to the cultivators, they were just like children playing house. On the surface, they were abnormally powerless. A large number of tigers died tragically under the butcher's knife. In the end, some demonic beast-level tigers desperately resisted the attack from behind and let them escape. But then, those cultivators still caught up with them. What happened next was what they saw before. When Tirtian heard it, the purple mark on his forehead flickered continuously. His face was cold, as if his anger was about to erupt at any time. How could he not know? It must be the cultivators who coveted the demon bodies and the demon cores condensed from the essence of the demon beasts after they died. They would kill all of them when they saw them. This was the usual behavior of the cultivators. Humph! He snorted coldly and looked at them. Your valley is no longer safe. If you continue to stay, there will be problems sooner or later. If you don't have anywhere to go to my myriad demon valley first. When you reach the valley, I will naturally arrange for you. Everything will wait for me to go back. He did not intend to say too much to them. In the clan, the strong had always been the king. Tirtian's own strength could be said to be vast to the tigers in front of him. They had long been respectful and in awe of him. The heaven-defying method just now had actually transmitted the cultivation method and the tiger roar sound wave technique into their minds out of thin air, making them look at Tirtian with the same kind of burning gaze. It was as if a savior had appeared in a crisis. That kind of feeling was almost fanatical, as if the seed of Tirtian had been directly planted in their hearts. It rose to the level of faith and was the only thing they could rely on in their hearts. When they heard that Tirtian asked them to go to the myriad demon valley, they did not have the slightest resistance. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 354. This time, the main purpose of coming out was to go to the Five Elements mountain range. It was a complete accident that he met the Tiger Clan. It was impossible for him to return to the Southern Barbarian because of them. Speaking of which, with the speed of the tigers, it would take about 5 to 6 days to reach the Southern Barbarian. However, if they could enter the Southern Barbarian Valley safely, it would also be a rare experience for them. Then, he directly imprinted the map of the Southern Barbarian into their minds and took out a jade talisman to roughly record what happened here. It also explained some things about how to arrange the tigers. The jade talisman was given to them. It was used to prove their identity after entering the Southern Barbarian Valley. A talisman was inserted into each tiger's body. At critical moments, they could save their lives. After doing this, he let them all go down. On the way, when he heard that the 3 demon beasts of the Tiger Clan didn't have a name yet, Tirtian thought about it and gave them a surname. Their surname was Hu, and the biggest one was Hu Zhantian, followed by Hu Jingtian, Hu Shaotian. They would lead the clan to the 10,000 Demon Valley. Tiger was the clan's surname, but in Tirtian's heart, it had a deeper meaning. Tiger is the clan's surname. Anyone with the bloodline of the Tiger Clan can have the surname Tiger, but the real royal family of the clan should have the surname D. The Tiger Clan was his clan. When one person achieved the Tao, his chickens and dogs would ascend to the heavens. He would spend a lot of effort to improve the status of the Tiger Clan in the 10,000 Demon Valley and become the royal family of the Demon Clan in the valley. However, his family, his bloodline, should be the royal family of the royal family. The surname of D was the most appropriate. For example, Little White. For those close to him, it was not inappropriate to call him Little White. It was also a form of intimacy. However, if an unrelated stranger was also called Xiao Bai, that was an insult. Only with a name could one have a foothold. Tirtian pondered. The Tiger Clan had a surname, so Xiaobai should also have his own name. His surname was D, so Xiaobai should follow his surname. All right, I'll give Xiaobai a surprise when we return to the valley. A trace of gentleness flashed through D. Shirtian's heart. The floating cloud ship continued to move forward. It was hidden in the layers of clouds. The surrounding white clouds had a great concealment effect. Even if an ordinary person raised their head to look, they would only see patches of clouds. They wouldn't be able to see the shape of the floating cloud ship. After the episode, neither D. Shirtian nor Medusa was in the mood to continue the conversation. They were either meditating on the boat or enjoying the scenery below. On the way, they ran into several situations where the demons were being hunted. D. Shirtian, who was already in a bad mood, was blown into smithereens on the spot. What was weird was that the souls of the immortal cultivators who were blown to pieces disappeared into the purple mark on their forehead. It was as if his innate ability had not been taken away and was still there. It was extremely mystical. The Five Elements mountain range stretched for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The mountain peaks rose and fell. They were steep and strange. Strange flowers and grasses covered every corner. There were ancient trees that were several zhang tall. Many wild beasts were freely hunting for food. It was very vast. In the center of the mountain range, there were 5 mountain peaks with different temperaments and shapes. They emitted different auras. They were divided into the 5 peaks of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Each mountain peak was very strange because there was only a single type of spiritual energy of the 5 elements on top of them. For example, the mountain peak of metal element was filled with metal essence energy everywhere. It was sharp and murderous. If one practiced metal element cultivation techniques on top of it, they would definitely advance 1,000 miles in a day. There was also a sword tomb on top of it. Inside the sword tomb, there were countless sharp blades condensed from metal essence energy. The 5 mountains were of different attributes and belonged to the 5 elements. However, they were mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. When combined together, they formed a natural 5 elements great formation. The creation of nature was miraculous. It was truly a work of the gods that could not be fathomed. But now, in the sky above the 5 elements mountain range, there were streaks of light of various colors, and even the sword light of flying swords. There were many of them in the sky above the 5 elements peak. There were many of them, one after another, rising and falling. From time to time, there would be a strong aura emitted. In the sky above the mountain peak, there would be colorful lights. Immortal cultivators rose into the sky one after another. Flying with the wind, it was really like a world of immortals. It was unknown how many immortal cultivators there were. They came and went one after another. It was difficult to count them all. In many places, there were tents erected. Large groups of cultivators lived in them. There were also markets of various sizes that appeared from time to time. It was very lively inside. Cultivators looked back and forth in the markets, looking for the items they wanted. It was as if there was a large-scale festival held here. On the other side, demonic aura filled the air. The evil aura in the sky did not dissipate for a long time. Demonic flames filled the sky and filled the entire void. It was very strange. A large number of demons gathered in 2s and 3s, staring in the direction of the 5 elements peak. The hatred in their eyes was still deeply imprinted in the bottom of their hearts. With a casual glance, one would find that there were no less than 100,000 demons gathered in front of them. This number had probably occupied more than half of the remaining demons on the purple gold mainland. Even if there were still demons, they would hide in the mountains and forests. There would not be too many of them. It could be said that at this moment, most of the elites of the demon race were gathered here. They were the real family assets. If they were destroyed, the demon race would not be far from extinction. However, when the demon race was united, they were unprecedentedly strong. At this moment, they were probably the strongest they had been in tens of thousands of years. They were not at a disadvantage when fighting against the entire immortal cultivation world. Relying on the powerful combat power of the 8 demon kings, they were able to level the situation. In this mountain range, they were in a stalemate. No one could do anything to the other. This had a lot to do with the mysterious departure of the cultivators above the tribulation stage in the immortal cultivation world. However, it was undeniable that at this moment, the immortal cultivation world could not afford to pay such a heavy price to fight the 8 demon kings and destroy the elites of the demon race in front of them. After all, there were many sects in the immortal cultivation world. It was very difficult to unite all of them. At this moment, on the demon race's side, a huge cave had been dug out in a valley. The cave was so wide that even if 1,000 people came in at the same time, it would not feel crowded. Here, there were 7 demon kings who were emitting a unique pressure and temperament. They surrounded a stone table. There were all kinds of food on the table. There was a large plate of sparkling and round rice that was like a pearl. This was pearl rice planted in a sect. It was a kind of spiritual rice. It contained spiritual energy and was sweet and delicious. Other kinds of spiritual fruits and wild game were placed on the table. They were exquisite and filled the whole table. There was wine, food, and spiritual fruits. There were many good things. Even the sect leader of a sect would be jealous of them. Among the 7 here, there were Silver Hair, the Blood Dragon King, the Golden Wing Bat King, and Byzian. The other 3 looked a little unfamiliar. However, since they were on the same level as them, their identities were obvious. Sitting at the head of the table was a white-robed man with a snow-white feather fan in his hand. He looked like a weak scholar. There was not the slightest hint of muscle on his body. His snow-white hair was tied up behind his head by a lavender ribbon. There was always a faint smile on his face. He waved the feather fan slightly. He had an extraordinary demeanor and had the style of Zhuge Liang. One of them sat under his silver hair. His face was very old, like a pine tree that had grown for tens of thousands of years. The hair on his head was very messy, but there seemed to be a huge breath of life in his old body. He was unbelievably strong. His turbid eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. The other one had 6 mustaches on his mouth that looked like a rat's. He looked extremely wretched. Anyone who saw him at first glance would have the impression that he was a bad guy. As for the others, including Silver Hair and the others, there was a total of 7 people sitting here. It was disdainful to say that the people here were naturally 7 of the 8 great monster kings who were renowned throughout the world. The leader of the 8 demon kings was the white-robed young man who looked like a weak scholar. His name was the Snow Wing Rock Demon King. His original form was the Snow Wing Rock. He was born in the snow prison of the South Pole and had lived the longest. He was also one of the strongest among all the monster kings. The second was Silver Hair, who was known as the Nightmare Demon King. His original form was the extremely rare Silver Wing Dream Butterfly. He was born with the ability to enter the dreams of living creatures. This escape was not done through his spiritual consciousness, but with his body. It was extremely strange. He relied on the ability to easily enter the dreams of others. His experience was immeasurably rich. Every dream he experienced was an experience for his spirit. His state of mind was also rare. If he could not control his state of mind and entered other people's dreams, he would be completely brought into the dream and be unable to distinguish the difference between reality and dream. He would sink into it. He would be doomed eternally. The third was the old man next to him. Although he looked old as if he was about to die at any time, he was a tree king who had lived for countless years. No one knew why his original form was an ancient tree. They only knew that the life force in his body was unbelievably strong. His demon chi was extremely deep. As long as there were trees in the forest, he could control all the ancient trees and stimulate the hidden power in those ancient trees that had lived for countless years. He could turn them into powerful trance with powerful combat strength. People called him the Ancient Demon Tree King. The fourth was Byzian, who seemed to be indifferent to everything. She was focused on the bamboo in her hand. She was a demon formed from invisible smoke. She was the most ethereal and mysterious. She almost had an immortal body. As long as a wisp of smoke escaped, she could reform her demon body in a short time. The bamboo in her hand was a mysterious spiritual root. The fifth was the Blood Dragon King. There was no need to say too much about his strange power. His original form was a mutated blood dragon. He was lascivious by nature. The sixth was the Golden Wing Bat King. His original form was a golden wing vampire bat. He was very evil. The seventh was the sky-devouring Rat King. He was also a mutated species left behind from ancient times. His innate ability was very powerful. In a desperate situation, there were not many who dared to fight him one-on-one. The last one was the Heavenly Fragrance Fox King, Su Tianxiang. Her origin was not inferior to any of the Demon Kings. She could be said to be the king of the Fox clan, the nine-tailed Heavenly Fox, also known as the nine-tailed Demon Fox. Unfortunately, she was not here at the moment. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. If one did not see it for themselves, no one would believe that the person before them was the strongest of the 8 fiend kings. Silver Hair said sarcastically, not forgetting to pour a mouthful of spirit wine into his mouth. He said, "Everyone knows why the Immortals and Demons competition is held this time. The Immortal Cultivation realm took advantage of the absence of our elites to launch a ruthless siege. This time, our demon tribe suffered a great loss, and our foundation was damaged. Some of the new demon tribes with great potential were slaughtered. The loss is so great that we won't be able to recover even in 1,000 years." As he spoke, even the wine in his mouth seemed to contain a hint of bitterness. He gulped it down and said, "Even if the Demon Clan is unprecedentedly united, unleashing a huge potential and destroying hundreds of sects, it still can't make up for the huge losses we suffered this time. The world of cultivators wants to destroy our foundation. If it weren't for the 8 of us holding the fort here, I'm afraid they'll annihilate these elites in one fell swoop. All of the cultivators above the transcending tribulation stage have gone to that place, resulting in the current situation where neither of us can do anything to the other. However, this time, the conditions offered by those old foxes in the world of cultivators do not allow us to refuse. The demon transformation pool, even if there is a 1 in 10,000 chance, is worth us fighting for." Silverhair's eyes, which seemed to have seen through everything in the world, suddenly shot out 2 shocking rays of light, extremely sharp. It seemed to be able to pierce through everything. Similarly, in the eyes of the other 6 fiend kings, the same light flashed. That's right. As long as there is a demon transformation pool, it's worth it even if we have to pay a huge price. Thinking about it, the demon transformation pool has been lost for countless years since ancient times. I didn't expect to hear it here. The Demon Tree King, whose face was full of vicissitudes, said in an unusually hoarse voice, "It's so hateful that the venue of the Immortals and Demons competition is actually in the Tower of Babel. This tower has always been easy to enter but difficult to leave. It connects to the underground abyss and suppresses the savage abyss. In the competition, the Demon Kings with the strength of ancient Demon Kings like us are not allowed to enter. The situation is worrying." There was also a trace of helplessness in his words. They don't allow us to enter. Do they really think these schemes will succeed? Silver Hair said disdainfully, "After the competition, I have already sent a voice transmission talisman to Dishur Tian. Seeing the talisman, with his temperament, he will definitely come to help. With his arrival, our demon clan may not lose this competition. If we add 8th Sister Tian Xiang, there should be a certain chance of finding the whereabouts of the demon transformation pool. The demon transformation pool is the most precious treasure of our demon clan. If it is really sealed in the Tower of Babel, as those cultivators said, with the demon clan's bloodline, once we get close, we will sense it." 8th Sister rashly went to the land of the fallen gods. Although she found the heavenly treasure box, she suffered an irreparable injury, and her cultivation fell to the Demon King realm. Now, she is the most suitable candidate to go to the Tower of Babel. In addition to the Tion you mentioned, there may be a chance to take back the treasure. The Rock Demon King nodded slightly. He gently waved the feather fan in his hand and continued, "However, if it really comes down to it, there is no need to care about those agreements. Even if we lose the competition, we must force our way into the Tower of Babel. If we don't find the demon transformation pool, our demon clan will sooner or later go to the end. If the demon clan has no successor, even with the few of us here, it will only exist in name." Hearing this, the Demon Kings present couldn't help but nod in agreement. Their expressions were different degrees of seriousness. The importance they attached to the demon transformation pool had reached an inestimable level. From their words, it seemed that for the sake of the demon clan, the so-called competition between the immortals and demons was no longer important. What was important was how to find the demon transformation pool. As long as they could obtain it, they wouldn't hesitate to pay a great price. There was a hidden implication that they would use any means necessary. If they knew what the demon transformation pool was, they wouldn't be surprised by their words. Speaking of the demon transformation pool, its reputation among the demon clan was no less than the demon summoning banner. This pool was the foundation for the continuation of the demon clan. Legend had it that in ancient times, a peerless expert of the demon clan had died in battle. At the end of his life, he had given up his last chance of survival and gathered all his life force together to form a pool. The water in the pool seemed to be formed from the blood of that peerless expert. It was a dark green color like amber. Inside the pool, there seemed to be an endless amount of demonic energy. There was an inconceivable mystery inside. Since then, the pool formed by the sacrifice of this peerless expert was known as the demonic transformation pool. Any demon would have a chance to bathe in the pool. Bathing in the pool could cleanse one's marrows and tendons and cleanse one's demonic body. It could increase one's potential. It was the best gift that Ancestor had bestowed upon the younger generation. This was not the most magical thing about it. It was another incredible ability that made it the most precious treasure of the demon clan. In the world, there was the purple thunder rain that could make thousands of birds, beasts, flowers, and trees gain intelligence and become demon bodies. However, the demon transformation pool had the same ability. As long as any bird or beast bathed in the pool once, an ordinary beast body would instantly turn into a demon body and gain intelligence. It could transform into a demon body. As long as it existed, the demon clan would never go extinct. They would have an endless stream of descendants. Endless growth. However, the demon chi in the pool would also be consumed by the demon transformation pool. Once it was exhausted, it would lose its effect. Therefore, the demon clan would always throw a large number of the corpses of their enemies into the demon transformation pool. The demon transformation pool was extremely beneficial to living beings. However, as for dead corpses, once they fell into the pool, they would instantly be decomposed into the demon transformation pool's demon chi and used to create more new demon clan members. One was for new life, and the other was for devouring. In the ancient era, most of the enemies that were killed by the demon clan would be thrown into the demon transformation pool as nourishment. However, it was undeniable that the demon transformation pool was important to the demon clan. With it, the demon transformation pool could allow the demon clan to gain new life. In a short period of time, a large number of new demon clan members could be created to make up for the lack of demon clan members and the fact that it was too difficult for them to be born. It was enough to ensure that the demon clan would never go extinct. If they could obtain the demon transformation pool, the merit for the demon clan would be enough for future generations to worship. Brother D, we should be arriving soon. Silver Hair looked out of the cave silently with a strange glint in his eyes. However, he was gulping down a few mouthfuls of spirit wine from time to time. The other monster kings also had thoughtful looks on their faces, as if they were thinking about something. The 5 elements chi here is unusually rich. There are many immortal cultivators in front and demonic aura on the other side. If I'm not wrong, this should be the 5 elements mountain range. Just as Silver Hair was thinking about Tion, a huge spirit boat appeared at the edge of the Five Elements mountain range. Shirtion and Medusa stood at the bow of the boat and looked around. Seeing that the Five Elements chi in the mountain range was much richer than other places and that cultivators and demons were at odds with each other, how could they not know that this should be the Five Elements mountain range that Silverhair was talking about? The opposing scenes in the mountain range were clear. One side was filled with cultivators while the other side was filled with demonic aura. It was extremely distinct. If they could not even tell that, they could be blind. What should we do now? Medusa played with the ancient mirror and looked at Shirtion with a look that said, "I'll let you decide." Yes. Shirtion pondered for a moment and said, "The Five Elements mountain range is now the place where the immortal cultivation world and the demon clan are in a stalemate. According to Silverhair, if I'm not wrong, there should be 8 demon kings gathered here at this moment. Now that we're here, let's find Silverhair first and discuss other things. I'm still confused about the immortal demon competition." There was a glint in his eyes. He had come for the immortal demon competition. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he had to get involved in this competition. However, Silverhair had only mentioned the reason for the immortal demon competition in the Jade Talisman. He had not mentioned the details of the competition. Instinctively, he sensed that there was more to it than met the eye. Suddenly, just as Shirtion stopped the floating cloud bow in the sky above the mountain range and did not move for the time being, a strange and charming laughter came from the void and reached Shirtion's ears. At the same time, the scenery in front of him suddenly changed. His whole body was inexplicably pulled from the Five Elements mountain range into a strange world. Shirtion's expression became serious and his eyes swept around. He saw that there was a dense ghost aura everywhere in front of him. It was a group of evil spirits with 2 horns on their heads. They had big mouths and mouths full of fangs. Their eyes were glowing with a green light. They were huge, and each of them was more than 2 meters tall. They were holding a slender and ferocious ghost blade in their hands. With a swoosh, they all stared at him. TSK, TSK. The evil spirit closest to Shirtion opened its mouth full of fangs and fiercely chopped down with its blade. A dense ghost aura completely enveloped the entire ghost blade. It was as fast as lightning, and the angle was very tricky. The ghost blade was confusing and unpredictable. It was very strange, and waves of chilling ghost howls continuously poured into one's mind. Oof. Xiao Chun let out a heavy snort. He stretched out his hand and slapped the scabbard on Tiger Soul. Tiger Soul let out a low but domineering tiger roar. The saber flew out of the scabbard and flew above his head. Xiao Chun stretched out his right hand and grabbed Tiger Soul's slender saber hilt. The moment he grabbed it, Tiger Soul also let out a cheerful cry. It carried a bloodthirsty aura and looked forward to fighting side by side with its master and drinking the enemy's blood. Kacha! The moment he grasped Tiger Soul, he felt that Tiger Soul was like his own arm. The feeling of being connected by blood was perfectly presented in his heart. The tiger opened its eyes and shot out 2 oppressive lights that seemed to be able to pierce people's eyes and blind them. The golden blade slashed out diagonally and pulled out a golden blade screen in midair. It engulfed the evil spirit and instantly cut it in 2. It turned into smoke and dissipated. But then, the evil spirits around him, which were like an ocean, stared at him with green eyes like a tide. They waved their battle blades and let out strange ghost cries. They crazily surged toward Shirtion. Countless ghost blades fell from the sky and covered the earth. His entire body was instantly covered by countless attacks. Kill! After Sakura killed that evil spirit, the Tiger Soul in his hand did not stop in the slightest. Facing the sea of thousands of ghosts, not only was he not afraid, he even took a heavy step forward. This step looked like the walk of a dragon or a tiger. As he walked, it also carried an arrogant and domineering aura. A tragic, murderous aura shot out as the Tiger Soul slashed one blade after another. It was simple, yet carried an extremely powerful, murderous aura. He was as fast as lightning, but at the same time, he looked extremely slow. He slashed out hundreds of times, and the afterimages of Tiger's soul appeared in front of him. His saber skills were even more exquisite than before. The power contained in each saber strike was just right. Every saber strike was exquisite. It was as if each saber strike was following the trajectory of the heavens and earth. It carried an endless power and was unstoppable. Although there were many evil spirits in front of him, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered under Tiger's soul. With every slash, a large number of evil spirits were killed on the spot. The evil spirits in the sky could not touch his clothes at all. Roar! Brandishing his blade a few times, Indra's long hair fluttered wildly behind his back. He suddenly faced the sky and let out a tyrannical tiger roar. This tiger roar seemed to be able to shatter the heavens. The surrounding space was violently trembling, and countless evil spirits were instantly annihilated. After the tiger roar, a sound wave like a wave rapidly spread out in all directions. Wherever the sound waves passed, the space distorted. Large numbers of evil spirits were destroyed as if they were grass being cut. In the blink of an eye, the entire space was cleared. Not a single evil spirit was spared. Clang! Tiger's soul returned to its scabbard. Disher Tian said indifferently, Tian Xiang, that's enough joking. You should be able to come out now. He stood in this strange space with a calm expression. There was not a hint of worry on his face. He raised his voice and said, Huh. As soon as his voice fell, a burst of laughter that was as clear as a silver bell rang out. That laughter was so loud that even one's bones were about to fall off. Amidst the laughter, a peerless beauty wearing a plain white robe with a ribbon around her waist and a lavender wooden hairpin on her head appeared out of thin air with a sweet smile on her face. Her figure was graceful and graceful. Every time she smiled, there was a soul-stirring charm. It was as if she was truly a masterpiece of the heavens. Her beauty could not be described with words that could cause the downfall of a city. It was certain that the men in front of her would be intoxicated by her boundless charm at first sight. They would be unable to extricate themselves and be driven by her. Whether it was anger or laughter, they all had a bewitching power that could steal one's soul. Her charm was innate. It was a unique charm that she was born with. Waves of strange fragrance drifted in all directions. It made one unconsciously lose themselves in it. It was none other than the heavenly fragrance fox monarch, Su Tianxiang. Sure, Tian, I didn't expect you to become so powerful in just a few years. Not only have you condensed an inner core, but you've also broken through to the first transformation of the Yaodan. Looking at the depth of your cultivation, I'm afraid you're already at the peak of the first transformation. You're only a step away from the second transformation. You dared to barge into the heavenly demon secret realm and cross the heavenly Yin-Yang bridge. Even the illusion I set up now can't do anything to you. To be honest, your speed of growth has surprised even me. Su Tianxiang's arms were wrapped around the ribbon, which hung in front of her. She descended from the void step by step. Every step she took caused ripples in the void under her feet. Her clear voice came out of her seductive red lips, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, magnifying her charm. Looking at Sakura, who was standing proudly in front of him, his body was tall and straight like an eternal ancient peak that had existed since ancient times, proud and unyielding, with his usual indifference and majesty between his eyebrows. He secretly sighed in his heart. 10 years. In just 10 years, he could actually grow from an ignorant and ordinary king of beasts to today's height. Shurtian, oh Shurtian, what kind of weirdo did I create with a single thought back then? If there was anyone in this world who understood D. Shurtian the most, it would undoubtedly be her. Starting from Tiger Hill, she gave D. Shurtian a bottle of spirit-gathering pills with a single thought, which allowed him to embark on the path of demon cultivation and establish his foundation. In just 10 years, he grew from nothing to a demon monarch with the first transformation of the Yaodan. How many levels had he crossed in this process? To them, a short 10 years was like a snap of the fingers. Yet, D. Shurtian had grown to such an unimaginable level. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. Tianxiang. Di Shitian looked at Baihu with a hint of complexity in his eyes. He could only call out her name and couldn't continue. Ha! Shitian, after so many years, don't you have anything to say to me when we meet again? If that's the case, this little fox will be very sad. Tianxiang's eyes revealed a hint of slyness. She chuckled as she spoke, and at the same time, she pretended to cover her heart with a heartbroken expression. That sorrowful expression made people feel pity for him, even though they knew it was fake. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author, and I support the original readers. Chapter 356. Di Shitian's mind was shaken, but the Imperial Tyrant Heart mantra in the Imperial Book of Shocking the World made his state of mind extremely tough. My body is the Emperor, and my heart is the Emperor's heart. Nothing can affect my mind. He recovered from his momentary loss, but he was still in awe. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This Baihu was really a demon. Her every move and smile could charm all living things. This invisible charm was innate. If she used some charming means, even a Buddha with a pure heart and few desires would abandon Buddhism and become a demon. Don't use your charming power on me. Taking a deep breath, he frowned slightly and looked at Baihu. Humph, you are really a block of wood. Baihu heard this and couldn't help but curl her lips. She said slightly angrily, I don't know if you still remember the agreement I made with you back then. A pair of beautiful eyes fell on Di Shitian's face and looked at him seriously. It seemed that she was trying to find the expression she wanted on his face. I remember. 16 years later, I will go to the Green Mountains to find you, Di Shitian said calmly. The ribbon on Baihu's wrist fluttered. When she heard him say the agreement without hesitation, she nodded slightly and said with satisfaction, You still have some conscience and didn't forget the agreement we made back then. Otherwise, I won't let you go easily. At that time, what you will see will not be those useless little demons, but a large group of demons. As she said this, she waved her hand slightly in front of her, and a cloud pavilion appeared directly. In the pavilion, there was a pot of warm wine that had been boiled. There were some mellow spiritual fruits on it that could relieve fatigue. They entered the pavilion and sat down opposite each other. Baihu warmed the wine and poured a cup for each of them. This wine was a part of the monkey wine that she had taken from the Demon Valley. Although the taste of the wine was the same, the state of mind was particularly different. Looking at Baihu before him, Xiao Chun had a complicated expression in his eyes. The past flowed in his heart like a clear spring. When he recalled that she was one of the 8 Fiend Kings, he could not help but frown slightly. He asked, Tian Xiang, have you recovered from your injuries? What spirit herbs do you need? I can get them for you. Little Tian, you're showing concern for me. Baihu's eyes flashed with a trace of a smile. Don't worry. In this continent, there aren't many people who can take my life. Even those cultivators who haven't reached the transcending tribulation realm are no match for me. If they don't take advantage of the fact that I'm seriously injured to launch a sneak attack, they won't be my match in a direct confrontation. However, it's also fortunate that I was able to meet you in a desolate place like Tiger Hill. Xiao Yin chuckled. She reached out her jade-like hand and pinched a sparkling and translucent vermilion fruit from the jade plate in front of the table. She brought it to her lips. What exactly happened back then? Logically speaking, each of the 8 Fiend Kings should have the strength of a true Fiend King. At the very least, they should have reached the 4th transformation realm of the Demon Core realm. Nowadays, all the cultivators above the transcending tribulation realm in the immortal cultivation realm have mysteriously left. Coupled with the demon clan's innate magical abilities, there shouldn't be anyone on this continent who can seriously injure you. However, back then, you were chased by a nascent soul realm cultivator. Di Shitian seriously looked at Baihu's charming face. He frowned slightly and asked a question that had been in his heart for a long time. Indeed, ever since he found out that Baihu was one of the 8 Fiend Kings, he had always been puzzled. If she was one of the 8 Fiend Kings, then her cultivation definitely wouldn't be lower than that of an ancient Fiend King. After all, the title of Fiend King was based on the ancient Fiend King's cultivation. However, the first time he saw her, she was chased by a mere nascent Soul Realm cultivator at Tiger Hill. If she truly had the strength of an ancient Fiend King, then wouldn't a nascent Soul Realm cultivator be like an ant in front of her? She could crush them with a single finger. How could she be chased by a nascent Soul Realm cultivator? There was clearly something strange about this. Now that they met again, he couldn't see through Baihu's true cultivation at first glance. This deepened the puzzlement in his heart. He guessed that perhaps something unusual happened back then, which caused her to suffer some kind of serious injury. Baihu heard him and rolled her eyes at him. However, she just smiled faintly. She picked up the wine cup and took a sip. As if she didn't want to talk about this topic, she directly changed the topic and said, "That's all in the past. There's no need to talk about it. By the way, I see that you've improved by leaps and bounds. The demon weapon in your hand is also extraordinary. I'm afraid that you're already the strongest among the 8 Fiend Kings. This time, I heard that second brother Meng wanted to invite you here. It seems that you want to participate in this immortal demon competition." She changed the topic to the immortal demon competition. Disher Tion naturally wasn't someone who was easy to fool. However, seeing the White Fox's words, it was obvious that she wasn't willing to mention the matter of that year again. If he were to forcefully drag the topic back, it would instead be awkward. He wasn't someone who liked to force others. Besides, the immortal demon competition was the same. He was very curious about it, so he went with the flow. Well, this time, the immortal cultivation world suddenly acted ruthlessly and wanted to destroy the foundation of the demon clan. I'm also a member of the demon clan. There's no reason for me not to come. However, Silverhair only briefly mentioned the competition in the Jade Talisman. I'm not very clear about the details. Now that I've met you, I think you should be very clear about it. If possible, I hope you can explain it to me. He looked at Baihu calmly, but quickly looked away. He picked up the wine cup and poured it into his mouth. Then he picked up a few spiritual fruits and ate casually. He didn't say anything polite. Baihu pursed her lips and chuckled. She looked at him meaningfully with a serious expression. To be honest, I didn't expect you to come. However, the immortal demon competition this time is indeed very important. The competition isn't about winning or losing. Not about winning or losing. Disher Tion raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Could there be more to it?" Although it was a question, his tone was almost certain. The competition wasn't about winning or losing, but it was so important. There must be something that caught their attention. Almost instantly, he thought of this. Yes. The White Fox nodded approvingly and said, "The competition this time is not simple. The location is not here, but at the Tong Tian Tower. The reason why we agreed was because the cultivators said that the demon clan's most precious treasure, the demon transformation pool, is sealed within the tower. This demon transformation pool is far too important to our demon clan. Compared to it, the outcome of the competition is secondary. As long as we can obtain the demon transformation pool, it doesn't matter if we win or lose the competition." What? The Tower of Babel? The demon transformation pool? Why would the demon clan's treasure be sealed in the Tower of Babel? Before Disher Tion could guess what these two things were, dark scream sounded in his mind. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, he could imagine that it must be blowing its dragon whiskers and widening its eyes in the purple eye. "Dark, do you know about the Tower of Babel and the demon transformation pool?" Disher Tion asked in his mind. He, who didn't know about the Tower of Babel and the demon transformation pool in ancient times. Since we've met today, I'll tell you about it. Otherwise, people will say that I'm ignorant. Nether let out 2 strange cries and spoke about the origins of these 2 items. There was no need to say more about the demon transformation pool. After Disher Tion heard about it, he understood how important the demon transformation pool was to the demon clan. It was related to the demon clan's inheritance. With it around, the demon clan couldn't destroy it. It was just that after ancient times, its whereabouts were unknown. That was why the demon clan ended up in its current state. As for the Tower of Babel, well, its origins were not ordinary. In ancient times, the purple gold continent was the origin of heaven and earth. It was the source of all the worlds in the universe. However, at that time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was so abundant that it couldn't be any more abundant. The people who lived on the continent were all races that were unbelievably powerful. Among them, the most terrifying and powerful race was not the demon race, but the barbarian race. Rather than the barbarian clan, they were more like savage beasts. At that time, life in the world was the most ancient. Because of the abundance of spiritual energy, all living things in the world were born with spiritual intelligence. This was the origin of the demon clan. However, the demon clan wasn't the most ancient existence at that time. Speaking of which, the first creatures to survive on the Zijin continent were the savage beasts. What were savage beasts? Among them, they had the word beast. In fact, it wasn't wrong to call them wild beasts. It was just that they were cruel by nature. The blood in their bodies was born with a kind of violent power. They liked to kill and were extremely irritable. Moreover, their sense of territory was extremely strong. Most savage beasts had relatively low intelligence, similar to the current ordinary birds and beasts. However, every one of them was extremely terrifying. Just for example, there was a savage beast called a reaper mantis. Its two forelimbs were like two blood-red scythes. Its body was very tall and sturdy, and its sides were even sharper. With a casual wave, it could cut a small mountain. When it fought, the frenzied reaper mantis could slash hundreds of times in an instant. It was terrifyingly sharp. Moreover, in ancient times, every one of them contained an incredible and terrifying power. It was extremely terrifying. Their numbers were incomparably huge. Just like ordinary wild beasts, there would be a nest of them. Their numbers were unbelievably huge. During that time, it was almost completely a world of savage beasts. This period of history was called the wilderness, especially before ancient times. As soon as the demon clan was born, they immediately started a fierce battle with the savage beasts. In order to survive, they were fighting almost all the time. Back then, it could be said to be an extremely tragic era. Through countless massacres, the oldest batch of powerhouses had also grown. They used the comprehension in the battles and nature as their teacher to create the most ancient cultivation techniques. The demon clan was very powerful, especially those who could transform into demons in ancient times. Every one of them had accumulated strength for countless years. Once they transformed into demons, they would have incredible power. However, even so, compared to the overlords of the wilderness, they were still a far cry. In front of the terrifying savage beasts, the demon clan's living space shrank time and time again. They were oppressed to the point where they were almost annihilated. During that most difficult period, an expert of the demon clan, for some unknown reason, discovered a heaven-reaching pagoda. This heaven-reaching pagoda was something he saw with his own eyes. It grew from the ground layer by layer. It was indomitable. It was impossible to estimate how tall the heaven-reaching pagoda was. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens. He didn't know what kind of benefits that expert had gained after witnessing the growth of the Tower of Babel. But he didn't say anything. He returned to the Yao race and called a few people close to him. After giving them a few instructions, he immediately went to the Tower of Babel and started a strange blood sacrifice. The Tower of Babel erupted with brilliant light. It covered the entire Zijin continent. A vortex appeared in the heaven-reaching pagoda. Wherever the light went, all the savage beasts, no matter how strong they were all wiped out. They were like wheat under a sickle. The savage beasts that had dominated the continent for countless years disappeared without a trace in a short day. It was as if they didn't exist at all. This also announced the end of the era of the savage beasts. Back in the ancient times. Later, the demon clan went to look for that expert. However, I didn't find anything. They only found out that the expert had started a strange blood sacrifice. The blood sacrifice required his entire life. What happened back then was an unsolvable mystery even in the ancient times. But since then, it was discovered that the savage beasts that had been taken away were living in the heaven-reaching pagoda. It was as if the savage beasts were moved from the continent to the heaven-reaching pagoda in a day. No one could explain why this happened. However, there were many experts who coveted the inconceivable power of the Tower of Babel and wanted to refine it. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Those who tried to refine it, no matter who they were, all died strangely in a mysterious blood sacrifice. Even the peerless experts were the same. At that time, all the experts understood that the heaven-reaching pagoda wasn't a powerful spiritual treasure. Instead, it was an unpredictable existence. It was indestructible, immovable, and immortal. With this precedent, no one dared to have any ideas about it. But the heaven-reaching pagoda became an unusual existence. Many experts didn't want to touch this thing. However, the savage beasts taken in by the pagoda took root in the pagoda and occupied the entire pagoda. From the bottom to the top, the strength of the savage beasts on each level was different. The stronger the savage beasts, the higher the level they lived in. Those on the first level were the weakest of the savage beasts. But they were not ordinary people who could stroke the tiger's whiskers. On the contrary, many experts liked to train in the pagoda. As long as they didn't die, their cultivation would increase greatly when they came out. But this training didn't have the support of elders. There was no superiority in the pagoda. Facing the savage beasts, the weak had to die. Only the strong could survive. This was an invisible rule. The heaven-reaching pagoda has such a mysterious origin. Tion frowned slightly. He didn't expect the heaven-reaching pagoda to have such a great origin. He didn't expect there to be a wildland before the ancient times. As for the savage beasts, that was something he had never heard of. If it wasn't for Ming, he wouldn't have known about these secrets that even the ancient experts didn't know. The heaven-reaching pagoda is not a place to play. Not even 1 out of 10 people can come out. But those savage beasts are full of treasures. If you can come out, you will have a great harvest. Back then, my master took me in once and almost didn't come out. Ming didn't know if he was trying to attract or scare him. He just kept shouting. I will never forget that I met a strange, savage bull in there. Its eyes were so powerful that even my divine soul would be annihilated when it stared at me. If it wasn't for my master's strength, I would have died there. There was a trace of fear in his words. It's so scary. Sakura furrowed his brows and began to think about why the immortal cultivation world would place the competition in the Tower of Babel. It should be impossible for them not to know the dangers in the tower. But knowing this, they still did it. And the trick in it was worth it. For the demon transformation pool. He raised his head to look at Baihu and said in a deep voice. White Fox smiled calmly. He poured the wine and said, yes, the demon transformation pool is too important to the demon clan now. Even if we have to pay a high price to get it back, any price is worth it. He paused and continued. When the time comes, I will go in with you. The heaven-reaching pagoda is very dangerous. There are savage beasts everywhere. How can you be sure that the demon transformation pool is inside? If this is just a cover to trick us into going in, wouldn't we be courting death? Tion felt a little heavy. He finally understood the function of the demon transformation pool. It was exactly the same as the purple thunder rain. It could indeed continue the bloodline of the demon clan. But the key was whether this news was true or false. If it was true, there was no harm in taking a risk. But if it was false, the consequences would be the loss of countless elites of the demon clan. It was possible that they would never be able to recover. No, it's not just the demon transformation pool. There's also the blood of savage beasts. The white fox looked at Sakura seriously and said, do you know about the blood of the savage beasts? According to legends, the blood essence in the heart of the savage beasts is the most essential part of their body. It contains enormous amount of energy and is used to enlighten the demon race. Just 1 drop is enough to turn a piece of rotten wood into a demon. It can be used to refine Dawn. It can be used to refine blood god Dawn that only existed in the ancient times. Every pill contains a huge amount of pure energy. A low-grade blood god dawn can increase one's cultivation by hundreds of years. High-grade and top-grade ones are even more incredible. Since you want to enter the Tong Tian Tower, whether it's the Demon Transformation Pool or Savage Beasts, as long as it's possible, you have to collect as much blood as possible. The blood of Savage Beasts contains a huge amount of pure energy. If you want to increase your cultivation, the Tong Tian Tower is the most suitable place. The White Fox seemed to be consciously explaining these secrets to Sakura, which other people wouldn't normally talk about. It then continued. Fortune and misfortune are mixed in the pagoda. Life and death are hard to predict. However, those who came out would definitely have a huge increase in their cultivation because they ate the meat and drank the blood of the savage beasts. The strength of savage beasts is all in their flesh and blood. It's hard not to increase their strength by eating and drinking like this. Di Shirtion rarely interjected. He listened quietly and tried his best to absorb these things that were usually hard to know. This space was really strange. Baihu mentioned that it was an illusion formed by her special ability. However, even if the Medusa outside were close to each other, she would not know what was happening here. It was very strange. Speaking of which, the Baihu is definitely a race blessed by the heavens. Each of the 9 tails possessed an innate ability. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 357. The 9-tailed celestial fox, when cultivated to the highest level, would grow 9 tails behind her back. Every day, each tail would bestow her with an innate magical power. In other words, once she really grew into the legendary 9-tailed celestial fox, she would have 9 incredible magical powers. From past experience, the magical powers bestowed by each tail were very wonderful, unique. Therefore, in the demon clan, the 9-tailed celestial fox was also a very unique existence. It was said that in ancient times, there was a 9-tailed celestial fox in the Fox clan. Her strength was really strong. She was born with the ability to seduce, almost enough to subvert all living things, make the world lose its color, make all things wither, and thousands of women ashamed to death. That kind of beauty could no longer be described with words. It could be said to be the extreme of the art of seduction, making countless experts crazy. Since they were blessed by the heavens, but also envied by the heavens, so that every generation of the celestial fox lineage, there would only be one survivor. The two would not meet, and if they did, there was bound to be a disaster. They would fall into a situation where they would die a horrible death. Was it good luck or bad luck? No one could really make a conclusion about it. Blood god elixir? Listening to Baihu's endless talk, as if she wanted to make up some knowledge for him, Di Shirtion, while listening, seemed to have a flash of lightning in his mind. He suddenly remembered that he had seen the name of a kind of spirit wine in the wine god's treasure book, which seemed to be called emerald blood amber wine. Although, because of the restriction placed by the wine god, he could only see the names of those spirit wines, but to know all the wine recipes, he had to brew the previous spirit wines one by one. Soaking the previous page in the wine with the spirit wine would open the second page of the spirit wine, which would show the brewing method and illustration of the spirit wine. Take the previous example. The first spirit wine was brewed mysterious azure ice fire wine. After soaking it according to the method, the second illustration of the wine god's treasure book appeared, which recorded a spirit wine called Dream of 1,000 Years. This wine was very interesting. It did not increase cultivation or temper the body, but it could make people feel like they were dreaming of 1,000 years. Drinking it could make you recall many memories of the past. It was as if he had been dreaming for a long time. It was very interesting. Sometimes drinking this kind of wine would actually result in a very good harvest. Perhaps, because of it, one of the demons in one's heart would be freed, and even one's mental state would be improved. Sometimes, memories were worth looking forward to. Maybe you can find something beautiful that you want to do, but can't do. The recipe for this kind of spirit wine was actually not complicated. The most important thing was that it required a spirit quenching called dream recall grass, along with some other spirit herbs and spirit herbs. Only then could it be brewed. However, this kind of wine needed to be stored for at least 1,000 years before its effects could be completely brewed. Therefore, it could be considered quite rare. The Dream Recall grass happened to be obtained from a demon on Misty Wave Island. It was transplanted into the Shinnong's Paradise map, and the other ingredients were not difficult to find. It had been brewed long ago. Now it was placed in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. With the pagoda's ability to reverse time, it sped up the brewing process. If it was placed in the second level, it would take about 20 years outside. With the reversal of time in the wine god's gourd, it would take another 10 times, and the time would be shortened. Calculating the time, it would not be long before it could be taken out and used. I wonder if the Emerald Blood Amber wine would have an even more miraculous effect if it was brewed with the blood of savage beasts. D. Shurtion inexplicably flashed through his mind. Who wouldn't want their cultivation speed to be faster? However, that group of cultivators said that we ancient demon kings are not allowed to participate in this competition. Moreover, Boss and the others really can't move easily. If they leave rashly, that group of cultivators might have ill intentions towards the other demons. It's only right to be on guard. In the end, after revealing most of the things that it knew, the white fox furrowed its brows and said one thing. Silverhair and the others are not allowed to participate in the competition. D. Shurtion's eyes shot out a ray of light, and he muttered, if the immortal cultivation world sends out a large number of cultivators above the nascent soul stage, I'm afraid we'll be at a disadvantage. How could he not know that in the current demon race, there was a huge gap in strength? It wasn't that there weren't any experts. The 8 great demon kings were all experts of the ancient demon king realm. However, the number of experts below them was exceedingly few. For example, those who had reached the first revolution of the demon core realm, like Indra, could be counted with one's fingers. In this way, it was almost obvious that they were at a disadvantage. Baihu chuckled meaningfully and shifted her body. The 2 peaks in front of her chest trembled a few times, full of temptation. D. Shurtion felt his mouth go dry, and he shifted his gaze to the side. Shurtion, don't worry too much. This time, they missed me. The injury I suffered last time was too serious. Although I've been quietly recuperating, I still haven't completely recovered. I haven't recovered the strength I had in the past, so I can participate in the competition. After staying in this illusion for a while, Baihu also removed the illusion. In a flash, in front of the floating cloud ship, D. Shurtion and Baihu were standing in the void facing each other. Medusa was holding the strange mirror in her hand. A layer of clear light burst out from the mirror, shining in all directions. At this moment, the mirror was shining on D. Shurtion and the others. Heavenly Fragrance Fox King, one of the 8 great demon kings we've met before. After seeing D. Shurtion and the others appear, Medusa's eyes flashed with a strange color as she nodded to Baihu. In the southern barbarian lands, they were not rare. They were familiar with each other. As soon as they saw her, they immediately understood that the laughter from before should be from her. They looked at each other and saw that nothing had happened. Clearly, it was just a trick to tease them. They didn't care. Sister Medusa, I haven't seen you for a few years. Your cultivation has improved greatly. Congratulations. I'm afraid it won't be long before you catch up with me. Baihu said with a chuckle. The surrounding breeze blew, and the ribbon in her hand fluttered in the wind, like a fairy descending to the mortal world, filled with a bit of brilliance. Sister, you flatter me. Medusa smiled faintly. Back on the ship, under the guidance of Baihu, they soon arrived at the valley where the demon clan gathered. As soon as they arrived, Silverhair and the others stood in the valley and waited. When they met, they had to be polite and introduce to each other. Fortunately, the demon clan didn't have too many complicated formalities. After introductions, they ate and drank together. As they chatted, they began to get familiar with each other. D. Shurtion also got to know the other 3 demon kings for the first time, and his impression of them was not bad. In particular, the leader of the demon kings, the blood-winged rock demon king, was very curious about this seemingly weak demon king. Among the 8 demon kings, it seemed that each of them had an extremely strong pressure, but he only vaguely sensed a trace of a relatively dangerous aura from the rock demon king. Although this aura only lasted for a moment, it made him understand that the rock demon king was the leader of the demon kings. He was fully deserving of this title and definitely had the strongest strength. Hidden in this body, if it were to erupt, it would definitely have a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth. That day, he directly opened a large cave in the valley and temporarily settled down inside. Hey, this curse mark is reacting at this time. Naturally, opening a cave was not difficult. There was no need to decorate the inside. He directly made a bed and sat cross-legged on it. Just as he was about to begin his daily routine of cultivation, he suddenly saw the strange mark on his right hand. The mark was in the shape of a pitch-black skull. The eyes on the skull were emitting a strange green light, as if they were alive and were staring at him. This mark was the strange curse mark that was formed when a black gas rushed into his hand after he killed the young master of the 5-element sect in the heavenly demon secret realm. However, there had been no changes all this time. If he wanted to dispel it, he did not know where to start. It was not that he had not tried, but this thing was very strange. If he dispelled it today, it would mysteriously appear again the next day, like a parasite in a tarsal bone. Over time, when he saw that it was not harmful, he temporarily put it aside. The person who died under my saberback then seemed to have said that he was the young master of the 5-elements sect. This is the 5 Elements mountain range. According to Silverhair, there's a large sect called the 5 Elements sect in the mountain range. Could it be here? Tion looked at the skull mark on the back of his hand and thought to himself. In the past, he did not know the art of curses. However, now that he had obtained the inheritance of the curse mark from the ancient scroll, although he was still not very clear about it, he had a general understanding of the art of curses. To put it bluntly, the art of curses was the art of curses. Now that the art of curses was lost, and because they were too strange, they were called curses by the world. However, their power was actually the same. I did not expect to meet the person who cast the art of curses here. It seems that the sect master of the 5 Elements sect should be the relative of the cultivator I killed back then. However, it will be a little troublesome to remove this art of curses. Removing this kind of art of curses was neither difficult nor easy. It was very simple. In fact, as long as the person who cast the art of curses was killed, the art of curses used to track and lock onto the target would naturally dissipate. It was not an overly powerful art of curses. It was only used for revenge. With the art of curses, even if they were thousands of miles away, one could clearly sense the other party's presence and launch a pursuit. It could be said that one would not rest until one was dead. He raised his eyes and looked towards the direction of the 5 Elements peak. With this glance, even the thick stone walls were unable to obstruct his gaze. A sharp glint shot out from his eyes, and within the indifference was a ghastly, killing intent. That's fine as well. If they don't provoke me, then so be it. If they come looking for trouble, then I'll kill both their sons and their fathers. After spitting out these words, he no longer paid attention to the skull imprint in his hand that was still flashing with a strange light. He closed his eyes and activated his art of cultivation, urging the Emperor's true force to circulate in the demonic veins around his body. The branches on the demonic veins also seemed to be glowing with vitality, spreading to the surrounding flesh and blood, constantly working hard to grow. Sooner or later, these branches would also connect with each other, covering every inch of the body's flesh and blood, connecting to form a complete meridian diagram. All around, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth madly rushed into his body, directly forming a spiritual chi vortex outside his body. At the same time, countless pitch-black power of desire was sucked into the demonic veins like a funnel, rushing into the 3rd grade black lotus in the demonic palace. The 3rd grade black lotus seemed to never stop, quickly rotating in the jade cauldron. Every time it absorbed a bit of spiritual chi and power of desire, The luster on its surface seemed to become more lively and rich. The 10 art of curses that seemed to grow on the black lotus strangely flew out from the black lotus, following the rotation of the black lotus, dancing in the surroundings, absorbing the surrounding energy. Even their light became much brighter. Old Meng, the Deshirtion you invited is indeed extraordinary. Look. At this moment, in the sky above the valley, the rock demon king, dressed in white and holding a feather fan in his hand, stood side by side with silver hair, looking at the cave opened by Deshirtion. In the eyes of ordinary people, there might not be any difference, but they could see that the spiritual chi in the valley was rapidly converging towards him. Waving his feather fan, he smiled faintly and said, he just started cultivating, but he was able to snatch more than half of the spiritual chi in the valley, and his speed is so fast. It seems that his cultivation is only at the first transformation realm. But in this situation, even among the 8 great demon kings, he is inferior. Do you see? The one beside him is 8th sister. He can even take more than half of her spiritual chi. Not simple. He is indeed blessed by the heavens. His talent is extraordinary. His words were filled with amazement, admiration, and more or less revealed a surprised expression. There was a trace of indescribable respect. Silver Hair drank a mouthful of wine. His eyes, full of vicissitudes, swept a glance, and said indifferently, Brother D has passed several stages in the path of questioning heart in the secret realm. His potential is so great that it is immeasurable. With his cultivation speed, it won't be long before another Demon King level powerhouse appears in our demon clan. Even surpassing you and me may not be a difficult matter. To be honest, Silver Hair had definitely poured a lot of energy into Indra. Back then, in the secret realm, he had discovered that Indra actually had such a huge breakthrough. Not only had he reached the first transformation realm, he had even reached the peak of the first transformation realm. It seemed that he could step into the second transformation realm at any time. This kind of cultivation speed was extremely shocking. Monster, it was really a monster's cultivation speed. Yes, to be honest, after seeing Deshirtion, I really don't want him to go to the Tong Tian Tower. If he dies there, the loss to our demon clan is almost irreparable. Even I can't see through his potential. Rock Demon King shook his head slightly. Don't worry, I believe that he is definitely a prodigy with great luck. He won't die so easily. Silver Hair seemed to be very confident as he laughed. Bang! At this moment, in a quiet room on 5 Elements Peak, a valiant middle-aged man was staring at a strange mirror painting in the void with his eyes wide open. He stretched out his hand and pointed at an incense burner at the side. A sharp golden sword chi bombarded the incense burner, instantly shattering the huge incense burner on the spot. Even a magic crown on his head was emitting rings of 5-colored light. The anger in his heart seemed to be about to shoot out directly from his eyes. Looking carefully at the mirror painting in the void, what appeared in the painting was the scene of Deshirtion sitting cross-legged in the cave, cultivating. It was actually able to see his whereabouts out of thin air. Looking at Deshirtion's figure, if this person's gaze could kill, he would have killed him thousands of times in an instant and dismembered him into pieces. His eyes were filled with extremely dense hatred, and even his face became extremely ferocious. He gritted his teeth and said, Good. Demon race, if I, Deng Tianhua, don't personally cut you into pieces, how can I vent the hatred in my heart? How can I avenge my son's blood feud? Not only will I cut you into pieces, but I will also bury the entire demon race with my son. When the cold voice was spat out, gusts of bone-chilling cold wind blew in the entire quiet room out of nowhere. He clenched his fists tightly, and even his nails cut his palms and blood flowed out. He didn't care at all. He just stared coldly at the mirror painting in front of him. Bang! At this moment, Deshirtion in the mirror painting seemed to have sensed something. He raised his eyes and looked at Deng Tianhua. His gaze seemed to be able to break through the boundary of space and see him through the mirror. The entire mirror painting suddenly suffered a great deal of damage. With a bang, It collapsed into countless pieces and dissipated into nothingness. This wasn't the real mirror painting, but the manifestation of a kind of supernatural power. Deng Tianhua's eyes were fierce, and he said coldly, "I have found you. Let's see where you can escape to. Since you are here, you must be here to participate in the immortal demon competition. Good. This time I will let you die without a complete corpse. Don't even think about participating in the competition. 8 great demon kings won't be able to stop me. Come out." With a shout, a large crack appeared at the bottom of the quiet room. From the crack, a bronze coffin quickly rose up. The coffin was suffused with a bronze light, and there were many talismans on it. These talismans were mysteriously circulating on the coffin. It looked unusually evil. Go and capture that demon for me. I want to kill him with my own hands." The bronze coffin shook violently, and the returning bronze light suddenly changed. Black gas filled the air and covered the entire coffin. Then it instantly rushed into the crack below and escaped from the ground, directly passing through the earth. This mountain was filled with the power of the 5 elements. It was really strange that it could escape so easily. The crack also closed in an instant. This person was none other than the sect leader of the 5 elements sect. The cultivator that Di Shirtian killed back then was his blood. At that time, when the curse mark appeared on Di Shirtian, he had already noticed it. His heart was bleeding. Unfortunately, Di Shirtian was in the secret realm at that time, and he couldn't enter. When the secret realm opened again, and he wanted to seek revenge again, Silverhair and the others led a group of demons to destroy hundreds of sections. In the blink of an eye, they were in front of him. As the sect leader, he couldn't leave at all. His heart was filled with anger, but he had to stay in the sect. He didn't expect that this time, Di Shirtian would come to the 5 Elements mountain range personally. On the spot, he connected with the curse mark. Through the mark, his image was captured in front of him. He saw his enemy with his own eyes. Chapter 358. The curse imprint itself had the ability to track. It would send the cursed target's figure to the owner, but this kind of mirror image across space could not be used at will. Only when the distance between them reached a certain distance and the curse imprint became extremely strong could one see the other person's appearance through the imprint. This time, Deng Tianhua was completely driven mad. When he saw Di Shirtian's figure, he really wanted to eat his flesh, drink his blood, and swallow him into his stomach. If not for the fact that he knew that at this moment, the 5 Elements mountain range was a mix of good and bad people, and who knew how many experts had gathered, and that there were 8 great demon kings among the demon clan, he was afraid that he would have directly killed his way over. TSK. In an extremely remote and deserted mountain cave near the edge of the 5 Elements mountain range, a strange and sharp demonic sound that caused one's heart to feel a chill continuously reverberated. There seemed to be a strange restriction in front of the mountain cave that blocked the waves of demonic sound and did not allow it to spread out of the cave. Through the restriction, one could see that the cave was actually filled with endless demonic chi. The pitch-black demonic chi continued to churn and filled every inch of space. Within the demonic chi, one could vaguely see many ferocious-looking demons appearing and disappearing. From time to time, they would let out a strange demonic cry. The dense demon chi had corroded the cave walls into a black color, looking very strange and evil. Moving forward along the demon chi, in the deepest part of the cave, there was an extremely burly figure, at least 2 meters tall. The muscles all over his body bulged, as if they were alive, filled with a strong sense of strength. However, half of this person's face was covered with a hideous and terrifying demonic pattern, like black earthworms that spread directly to his neck. A strong demonic nature gathered on his body. If one took a closer look, they would discover that the place he was sitting on was not an ordinary place. It was actually the mouth of spring. What came out of the mouth of the spring was not clear spring water, but ink-black demonic chi. After the demonic chi came out, it drilled into the man's body. The demonic chi that permeated the entire cave was gushing out from this spring. There was a dilapidated palace floating above the person's head. There were countless demonic runes flowing on the palace, and they were also absorbing the surrounding demonic chi. The speed at which the demonic chi entered the palace was faster than the speed at which the person was absorbing it. It was like a huge whale swallowing seawater, gulping down mouthfuls of demonic chi into the palace. The more it devoured, the more demonic runes appeared in the palace. The dilapidated palace seemed to be slowly recovering under the devouring of the demonic aura. Some damaged areas were slowly mending, but the speed was extremely slow. If one did not observe carefully, it would be extremely difficult to notice. Deshirtion, I will definitely find you. Once I master my demonic arts, it will be the time of your death. The heavens are on my side. I'm afraid you would never have imagined that after you injured me, this Devil King would find this rare 9 in Devil Cave. With the help of the endless devil energy in the Devil Cave, my devil cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. No matter what, I won't let you off for what happened back then. Kill, kill, kill. I will refine you into my devil guard. You will be under my control for life. The man who had obviously turned into a devil suddenly opened his eyes. The color of his eyes was actually blood red, and they flickered with a red light. It was extremely terrifying. He roared loudly in the cave. After roaring for a while, the man's hand formed another strange demonic seal, and the surrounding demonic chi rushed into his body. In the blink of an eye, his body was completely enveloped by the endless demonic chi, and even his figure could not be seen. Only the endless demonic chi was violently tumbling. In the cave, there were still a large number of devils flying around wantonly, making strange cries. However, this demonic chi was only limited to the cave. Outside, the vegetation was still green, and there was a shade of green. It was like an ordinary mountain forest, and it was very unique. In a cave in a valley where the group of demons gathered, Deshirtion opened his eyes, slightly puzzled. He looked thoughtfully at the curse mark on his hand. Although he was in the midst of cultivation, with his sharp demonic consciousness, as long as anyone was near him, he would instantly sense it and wake up on the spot. This was an ability that one would have when one's cultivation reached a certain level. If there was hostility or killing intent under the stimulation of the outside world, it was possible to launch a killing move the moment he opened his eyes. Just now, he suddenly felt as if there was a pair of eyes secretly watching him, and it immediately woke him up. However, when he glanced around, there was no second figure in the surroundings. Naturally, it was impossible that there was anyone watching him nearby. The only suspicious thing was the strange curse mark on his hand. The skull on the mark flashed with a green light, and it looked like a pair of eyes hidden in the darkness. Seal. Deshirtion pondered for a moment and let out a cold snort. With a thought, the third gray-black lotus in the demon mansion immediately poured out a pure royal true force. It quickly passed through the demon veins in his body and came to his right hand. Without hesitation, it rushed towards the curse mark. The royal true force was extremely domineering, and it had a kind of aura of supremacy. When it came in front of the curse mark, it immediately turned into a ferocious beast and opened its mouth to swallow the curse mark. After a few cycles, the power in the mark was transformed into the royal true force, and the mar pattern on the back of Yuan Xian's hand naturally disappeared. However, Deshirtion knew that it was only the power of the curse that had been swallowed. The source of the curse had not dissipated, and it was still in his body. It would absorb the power of heaven and earth on its own, and it would reappear tomorrow. Doing this would not completely eradicate it. In the past, I might not have been able to do anything to you, but now I have obtained the inheritance of the curse mark, and this tracking curse is also a type of curse technique. When there is time, I will refine you into one of my curse marks and become my curse technique and use it for me. However, it seems that the person who put the curse on me already knows about me. That feeling of being watched, he was sure that he was not wrong. There was definitely someone spying on him in the dark, and it was very likely that it was the person who put the curse on him. However, he was not afraid. No longer thinking about it, he closed his eyes and wanted to continue cultivating. Bang! However, it seemed that the heavens destined him to not be able to cultivate in peace today. Just as he was about to close his eyes, suddenly, there was a slight vibration under his body without any warning. Dishurtian's reaction was not slow. Almost in an instant, he did not even stand up, and his body directly moved a few feet forward. In midair, his body stretched out, and his feet stepped on the ground. At the same time, the stone bed that he was sitting on collapsed the moment he left, turning into thousands of pieces, and with a strong force, shot out in all directions. In the midst of the exploded pieces, a shining bronze coffin emerged from the ground, and a large number of talismans were flashing rapidly on it. The coffin turned and faced Dishurtian, and without any courtesy, it turned fiercely and domineeringly towards him. This collision was like the collision of stars. The domineering and fierce aura caused even the air to tremble violently, and the space shook violently, causing the surrounding rocks to fly wildly. However, as soon as they hit the bronze coffin, they were instantly smashed into pieces. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of him. Break! Dishurtian's eyes flashed, and a layer of purple light circulated on the purple mark on his forehead. The majesty of the five extremes filled his entire body, and with a pat on his back, the tiger's soul flew to the top of his head. He raised both of his hands up high, and at the same time, he held the tiger's soul's slender hilt. The muscles on his arms instantly bulged and coiled up like dragons. The Emperor's true power surged into the saber one after another. A layer of golden divine light appeared on the tiger soul saber, and the figure of a divine tiger appeared on it. The sharp saber chi danced around wantonly. Chi. The tip of the saber swallowed and spat out a saber light that was several feet long, forming a huge tiger soul. Holding the saber with both of his hands, he heavily slashed down at the bronze coffin that was charging towards him. The tiger soul's edge was unusually sharp and domineering. Wherever the saber passed, a huge saber mark was actually drawn in the air. It was so fast that it slashed onto the bronze coffin and collided with the coffin's terrifying power without dodging at all. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Dishurtian only felt a huge recoil coming from the tiger's soul, and his body was involuntarily pushed back by this power. His feet were nailed to the ground like divine needles, and with this retreat, he left a mark that was 2 to several feet deep on the hard rock. He was forcefully pushed back more than 2 feet. However, the tiger soul saber strike was earth-shattering. In the entire world, it was as if there was only this saber light. The saber was filled with a huge amount of true power, and in an instant, the tiger soul's mighty power was activated. It was not an exaggeration. If this saber strike was outside, it could even split a mountain in half and crack the earth. The tiger's soul collided with the bronze coffin. Although the sakura was sent flying by the enormous force, the ferocious aura of the bronze coffin was also stopped on the spot. The coffin violently trembled. Although it didn't fly out, it stopped the momentum of the collision in midair. Clearly, it wasn't unaffected by the tiger's soul. However, it was unknown what material the bronze coffin was made of. Under the sharp saber of the tiger's soul, it actually only flashed a layer of talisman and blocked the saber light, not causing any damage to the coffin. It was extremely strange. Boom! After a slight pause, the bronze coffin shook violently. It turned around and charged towards Dishurtian again. It was still ferocious and domineering like Mount Tai. Oomph! Heaven-binding chains. Dishurtian's eyes focused, and his hand instantly formed a strange seal. After forming it, a huge amount of royal true power was released along with the seal. As soon as the seal was formed, the space in front of him suddenly trembled violently a few times. 3 golden chains suddenly appeared out of thin air. With a clatter, They wrapped around the bronze coffin like agile snakes. Throw a few tickets if you have one. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 359. They were extremely agile and appeared at different angles at the same time. They even appeared in front of the bronze coffin and bound the coffin in an instant. Boom! The bronze coffin itself had enough power to shatter a mountain. But now that it was bound by the 3 golden chains, it was like a raging bull suddenly had a rope tied around its head. The terrifying power instantly straightened the 3 chains, as if they were going to snap in an instant. However, the chains were extremely strange. The other end of the chains was directly inserted into the void, as if it was connected to the void. As the bronze coffin struggled, the void shook violently. Break! How could Dishurtian let go of such an opportunity? The tiger soul in his hand instantly shot out an endless amount of light. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward. With the tiger soul in his hand, he slashed with his saber from bottom to top. He held the saber with both hands and raised the saber to his shoulders. Without any hesitation, the huge saber light slammed into the bronze coffin, causing it to shake violently. The 3 chains shook violently, causing the void to shake. It was as if there was a terrifying existence in the coffin that wanted to break the chains. But once Dishurtian made the first move, he immediately didn't hold back in the slightest. Slash after slash, like moving clouds and flowing water, slashed out countless terrifying afterimages in the surroundings. Hundreds and thousands of slashes continuously landed on the bronze coffin that had appeared out of nowhere. The golden light of the blade was like a screen of blades that covered every inch of the coffin. This coffin was truly miraculous. The talisman on it would always emit a strange bronze light when the tiger's soul landed on it. Although the light on the talisman would become much dimmer each time it blocked a slash, it did not diminish in the slightest as it forcibly blocked the storm-like attacks without damaging the coffin in the slightest. Roar! The bronze coffin shook violently and suddenly emitted an intense light that had never been seen before. Waves of gray gas surged out of the coffin and wrapped around the chains, causing them to shatter on the spot. The bronze coffin that was originally lying horizontally in the air instantly fell to the ground, shattering the solid rocks on the ground. With a crack, the bronze coffin lid that was tightly shut suddenly opened to one side. The moment the coffin lid was opened, a wave of gray and pungent gas surged out crazily. The disgusting smell of rotting corpses filled the entire cave in an instant. Corpse chi! Indra cried out with a trace of surprise in his mouth, but he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of air. His whole body emitted a dense demonic aura, which repelled the corpse aura in the surroundings. When the demonic aura and the corpse aura came into contact with each other, it actually emitted a strange chi-chi sound, which was like the sound of water and fire, and there was a green smoke floating at the edge. Puchi! Before he could react, from the open coffin, a silver-white claw that was covered in long hair and shining with a silver light and 3 feet long clawed at Dishurtian's heart like lightning. Looking at the sharp claws that cut through the air and cut through the void like sharp blades, one could tell that this claw was as sharp as a divine weapon and terrifying. If it landed on the chest, one could believe without a doubt that it would be able to pull out a warm and bloody heart. Fast, unbelievably fast, almost in the blink of an eye, this silver claw had already appeared in front of Dishurtian's heart. It would not even take a second to break open the chest and pull out the heart. However, it seemed that this possibility was infinitely delayed. With a dang, this claw did not grab the heart but a sharp blade. The blade of the blade spurted out and burst out, bursting into the claw. There was a sound of metal colliding with each other. The 5 sharp claws and the blade burst into fierce sparks. Sparks were created. Punk! Dishurtian took this opportunity to raise his right foot and step on the tall body in front of him. The tyrannical true power contained in his foot suddenly exploded, and the opponent's clothes instantly turned into fine powder. Strands of long silver hair were blasted and fell down, but its body gave off a hard feeling as if he was stepping on a big iron mountain. It was as if it was not a body of flesh and blood, but a bronze man made of fine iron. It was like an Iron Man. It was truly invulnerable. Zombie, what a powerful zombie. A silver body. Could it be a silver armored zombie? Deschertien's mind quickly flashed with a thought. Borrowing the power of that kick, the corner of his eyes had already taken in the appearance of the figure in front of him. It was a zombie with long hair, a silver-white body, and a dense corpse aura emitting from its body. The zombie's eyes revealed a bloodthirsty red light. Its entire body was invulnerable, impervious to fire and water, and its movements were as fast as lightning. It did not have the so-called clumsiness of zombies. His heart secretly trembled. The aura emitted from this zombie was extremely valiant. He could feel that this body contained an extremely terrifying power. When the tiger's soul slashed on its hand, only a small crack appeared, and it healed in the blink of an eye. The zombie's undying body was extremely terrifying. Hee, Chertion, you're really in a good mood. Where did you find this little zombie from to touch you to practice your blade? At this moment, the silver-armored zombie in front of Chertion quickly pounced on him. 2 strands of silver-white corpse aura spurted out from its nose. It congealed and did not disperse, like a long snake rolling towards him. The sharp claws in its hands danced quickly, and the sharp nails drew out countless sharp afterimages. The sharp sound of the claws piercing through the air was still intensely ringing in his ears. Deschertien's expression turned serious. Just as he was about to cross swords with the zombie again, a seductive laughter suddenly sounded from outside the cave. As soon as the laughter fell, a plain white figure had already appeared in the cave. Without waiting for Deschertien to make his move, a rainbow-colored ribbon broke through the air and rolled towards the silver-armored zombie. This roll appeared to be very casual, but it easily wrapped up the silver-armored corpse, which had extraordinary strength, copper tendons, and iron bones, and wrapped it up like a rice dumpling. The other end of the ribbon was impressively held in by Hu's hand. With a shake of her wrist, the ribbon transmitted a force, and the wrapped zombie was smashed against the stone wall of the cave. With a loud bang, the zombie actually smashed a big hole in the hard mountain rock. The ribbon shook again, and once again wrapped around the zombie, and continued to smash it in all directions. For a moment, the rumbling sounds were unceasing. In the blink of an eye, the perfectly good cave was smashed into thousands of holes. Roar! Being smashed here and there like this, the zombie was about to get angry. The eyes of the wrapped zombie emitted a strange red light, and with a roar, it shook the cave unceasingly. Its originally extremely tall and sturdy body violently swelled, and in an instant it became 1 size bigger. Extremely dense corpse aura was spat out from its body. 10 sharp nails scratched on the ribbon, and with a swish, the ribbon was torn apart from the middle. The zombie was released from the ribbon's binding. As soon as it came out, it seemed to have sensed that Baihu was not to be trifled with. It actually dashed into the bronze coffin like lightning, and with a bang, the lid of the coffin was closed again, not leaving the slightest gap. The coffin trembled and drilled into the ground. As soon as it touched the ground, it was immediately like a sponge touching water and easily drilled into the soil. From the looks of it, it actually wanted to escape. Want to leave? It's not that easy. With a flash of light in Deschertien's hand, a snow-white 9-string zither appeared in his hand. This 9-string zither had 9 strings. Among them, 8 were sparkling and translucent like beautiful jade, but the remaining 1 was entirely earthy yellow, and on the string condensed an inconceivably large amount of earth origin. Deschertien did not even look at it. He reached out and placed his hand on the earthy yellow string, and with a fierce pull, he released it. A wave of earthy yellow sound waves swept towards the bronze coffin like a tide. One could see with the naked eye that wherever the earthy yellow sound waves passed, the ground below also trembled like waves. In the blink of an eye, the ground became incomparably hard like diamond. Even if one were to cut the ground with a knife, it would be difficult to leave a mark on the ground. He actually turned earth into steel with a single hand. It just so happened to target some of the 5 elements escape techniques. The bronze coffin was obviously traveling through the earth. This time, as soon as it entered the earth, it was trapped inside. In addition, the force that erupted from the violent tremors of the ground was all applied to the bronze coffin. At this moment, the coffin suffered countless fierce bombardments. Rumble. It was unknown what kind of treasure the bronze coffin was. At this juncture, the countless talismans on it burst out with unprecedented light. A powerful force appeared on the coffin, breaking free from the shackles, breaking through the shackles, and escaping into the distance. However, the moment it escaped, the light on the bronze coffin became extremely dim. There was no trace of luster, and the talismans became incomparably illusory, as if they could disappear at any time. It quickly traveled through the earth and escaped into the distance. Hey, when did your zither become so powerful? Baihu looked at the 7 sins demonic zither in Di Shirtian's hand in surprise, and said with slight surprise, the sound waves just now had the power of the 5 elements earth. Where the sound waves reached, even the earth could be controlled. Even if it is a natal demon artifact, it is only at the level of a magic treasure. How can it be so powerful? Her eyes looked around and finally landed on the bead on the zither. When she saw the origin of earth flowing on the bead, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She raised her head and looked deeply at Di Shirtian. She seemed to be deep in thought, but did not continue to say anything. What was the matter with that zombie just now? Why did it suddenly come to your cave abode? Could it be that those immortal cultivators did something again? Baihu changed the topic and asked about what happened just now. Someone is looking for me for revenge. Di Shirtian looked indifferent. He put away the 7 sins and put the tiger soul back into the scabbard. He did not think that the zombie would attack him rashly. Moreover, he felt like he was being watched before. The only possibility was that the person who cursed him sent it to seek revenge. If you have the ability, please help me subscribe. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 360. It seems that you really have a lot of enemies, and they are everywhere. In the Southern Barbarian, there was the 1,000 Beast sect, and here, there's zombies automatically coming to your door. You really don't lack enemies wherever you go. However, the bronze coffin just now was very extraordinary. I don't know who made it, but it even broke free from your method of transforming earth into steel. The white fox retrieved the ribbon and wrapped it around her arm again. The section that had been torn apart by the silver-armored corpse had been restored to its original state at some point in time. It was miraculous, as if it had never been torn apart. By the way, if it is not necessary in the future, it is best not to show your 7 sins demon zither in front of others so easily. If someone takes a fancy to it, be careful not to cause unnecessary trouble. Baihu suddenly added another sentence, rolled her eyes at him, and said, I really don't know where you get your luck from. Treasures of heaven and earth that others may not be able to find after thousands of years, but you easily get them one by one. If it were not for you, but someone else, even I would have snatched them. There was a kind of coquettish and indignant tone in her words, as if she was annoyed that she did not have that kind of luck. The heavenly treasure box that she brought out from that dangerous place with great difficulty turned out to be some puzzles that she did not like the most. When she looked at it, she saw stars and felt dizzy. She could not find the slightest pattern at all. She had benefited Di Shirtian. Now, on a life demon artifact, there was a rare treasure that could not be found in 10,000 years. She had extraordinary eyesight. Although it was only a glance, she could see that it was extraordinary from the method of transforming earth into steel. She also felt the extremely rich origin of earth in it. It was obviously not an ordinary item, and it was in the shape of a bead. The first thing that was similar to it was the spiritual item of heaven and earth, the earth spirit bead of the 9 spirit beads. This spirit bead was a treasure that was desired but could not be found anywhere. Obtaining one would have the opportunity to transform one's body into the legendary born Taoism aptitude. If it was known, it would immediately cause endless trouble. Who knew how many jealous people would rush to snatch it? Without absolute strength, such a treasure should not be revealed easily. Yes, Di Shirtian nodded slightly. Looking at the large crack on the ground, he said thoughtfully, "Zombies are indeed extremely evil. Their entire bodies are made of copper and iron, invulnerable to swords and spears, and impervious to fire and water. Moreover, they are born with divine strength and extraordinary strength. The corpse poison on their bodies is rather overbearing and vicious. Just the silver-armored corpse alone is strong enough to fight against my tiger soul head-on. I wonder how strong the gold-armored corpse on the floor above will be." In the past few days, he had encountered zombies twice in a row. The first time was on the way to the 5 Elements mountain range, and the second time was here. He cannot be wrong about the same corpse aura, especially the one who was wandering around with the black coffin on his back. He could clearly feel that he was definitely stronger than the silver-armored corpse. Zombies wander about the 3 realms and the 6 Daos. They are both dead and alive. They are unfathomable existences in the world. It is said that the ancestor of the zombies, Jiang Chun, was no weaker than the strongest cultivators in the world. In fact, he was even stronger. Zombies are neither dead nor alive. In fact, it's even stronger than our demon clan's demon body. A cool breeze blew through the cave. The Rock Demon King had a faint smile on his face. He held a feather fan in his hand and gently waved it. His clothes fluttered as he walked in. Behind him, the other demon kings also walked in. Smelling the faint corpse aura in the air, he said with a faint smile, "The cultivation world is still the same. I don't dare to say that they ambushed others, but it seems that they went for wool and came back to bite them. Brother D, with your current cultivation, you are already at the peak of the first transformation. It seems that it won't be long before you can step into the second transformation. Unfortunately, the battle is imminent. I'm afraid there won't be enough time for you to break through. Otherwise, if you can reach the second transformation, you will have the power to protect yourself on the first floor of the Tong Tian Tower." Silverhair also stepped forward with a faint smile. His eyes were full of vicissitudes as he glanced at Di Shirtian. The surprise and heartfelt congratulations in his words were not fake at all. After cultivating the Book of Shocking Huangji, Di Shirtian's cultivation realm will be shrouded in a layer of fog unless he fought with others personally. No matter how powerful one was, it would be difficult to see through his realm unless one's cultivation was much higher than his. Otherwise, one could only guess from the aura he emitted. Bai Hu could see through his realm because she lured him to make a move in the illusion. At this moment, Silverhair and the others could see through his aura when he fought with the bronze coffin just now. Silverhair couldn't help but be amazed. Di Shirtian's cultivation speed was really too unexpected. Although he knew that he had a breakthrough in the secret realm, he didn't expect that in such a short time, not only did he break through to the first transformation, but he also reached the peak of the first transformation. He could enter the second transformation at any time. With this speed, he had such an incredible breakthrough in just a few years. In the Yao clan, he was definitely the only one. He didn't know that Di Shirtian had obtained a heaven-defying treasure like the Ling Long Treasure Pagoda. It could reverse time. A few decades inside was only a few years outside. He didn't know this. Even with his calm mind, he was shocked on the spot. "Everyone, there is still half a month before the competition. I want to go into seclusion for a while. I will come out before the competition begins." Di Shirtian took a deep breath. His expression was calm. He nodded to the Rock Demon King and the others and suddenly said something that surprised them. "You want to go into seclusion at this time?" The White Fox was slightly annoyed as she said, "Shirtian, what are you trying to do now? It's not even a month until the competition, and you're suddenly going into seclusion. Don't tell me you're thinking of breaking through to the second transformation of Yaodan in such a short period of time. Eighth sister, since Brother D wants to go into seclusion, there must be a reason. The Rock Demon King extended his feather fan and gently stopped by Hu. He said with a smile, Brother D, you can go into seclusion here. I don't think those cultivators will dare to come. Later, I will set up restrictions around the area. If no one comes, then it's fine. If anyone dares to sneak attack, then they can't leave. However, most of the young experts of my Yao clan will come this time. If you have time, you should interact with each other. Get familiar with each other. When we enter the Sky Split Tower, we can take care of each other. Many thanks, Demon King. Di Shirtian nodded, but was stopped by the Rock Demon King with a smile. Ha! If you think highly of me, then call me Big Brother Shui. I had a name in my early years, Shui Wuya. The Rock Demon King's words were slightly intimate. Okay, then I'll call you Big Brother Shui in the future. Di Shirtian naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity to get closer to each other. He nodded and agreed. Seeing that there was nothing to do, and hearing Di Shirtian mention that he was going to cultivate in seclusion, the other Demon Kings also wanted to get close to him, but they all knew that now was not the time, so they all left with a smile. Baihu rolled her eyes at him flirtatiously and also walked out. For a time, he was the only one left standing in the cave residence. Looking at the cave residence, because of the previous battle, it was extremely messy. There were broken stones everywhere and even a huge crack in the ground. This was very troublesome for ordinary people, but Di Shirtian just waved his hand casually and pushed all the surrounding stones into the crack. He smoothed the crack and set up restrictions around it. The 7 Sins demonic zither flew out of the Yao residence and placed on the stone bed. The strings of the zither vibrated slightly, and a strong suction force was immediately emitted. All around, strands of darkness gathered toward the 7 Sins demonic zither as if they had spirituality. In the blink of an eye, the entire cave residence was filled with the rich power of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, occupying every inch of space. It could be expected that as long as one entered here and touched them, something bad would definitely happen. Just this dense power of desire alone was enough to surpass countless restrictions. Then he took out the exquisite creation pagoda and shrunk it to the size of a speck of dust. With a flash, he entered the pagoda. He did not stop at the first level, but directly went to the second level. With a 50-fold reversal time, half a month was enough for him to stay in the pagoda for 2 years. In these 2 years, if he used it to break through the realm, it might be very difficult. He didn't want to break through at this time. What he wanted to do was to condense the curse imprint on his hand into his own curse imprint. Remove this curse. The root of the curse technique is the curse imprint. The condensation of the curse imprint is to use one's own curse power to condense one's thoughts, to wander to the boundless realm of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, to use the endless desires of all living beings as thoughts and obsessions as sustenance, to condense an indestructible obsessions that can be used by oneself, turning this indestructible obsessions into a curse imprint, to display a mighty power that can shock heaven and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. Di Shirtian sat cross-legged on the grass. Some of the root of the curse technique that he had comprehended from the 10 curse imprints in the past appeared in his mind. What was the most terrifying thing in the world? Obsessions. Obsessions came from desire, a desire that could never be satisfied in one's heart. In the power of desire, there were endless desires and obsessions. These obsessions were formed from the desires of countless living beings. No matter how powerful an expert was, it was impossible to make them disappear. Similar obsessions gathered in the void. For example, the obsessions of lust. When countless obsessions related to lust gathered together, it would give birth to an indestructible obsessions related to lust. This obsessions was a combination of lust, desire, and lust, and would almost never be extinguished. In this indestructible obsessions, there were countless desires related to lust. If there was a curse technique master who wandered to this indestructible obsessions, and didn't lose himself in this obsessions, he could obtain a wisp of obsessions related to lust and bring it back to his body. Then, this wisp of indestructible obsessions would be condensed into a curse imprint, and he would obtain a curse technique. It was quite dangerous for a curse technique master to practice curse techniques, especially when looking for suitable obsessions. It was necessary to understand the most fundamental technique of the curse technique master, the divine sense separation technique. It could separate the divine sense from the main body and use a wisp of the divine sense to wander to the void of desire. If the divine sense was eroded by the obsessions, it could be given up in an instant. If the main body was damaged, it could be recovered in the end. It would not be completely lost and beyond redemption. Chapter 361. It was impossible for a cursemancer to absorb the power of desire directly like Deshirtion. They had to be careful even when they touched it. Once there was an accident, they would be doomed eternally. Therefore, the divine thought separation technique was the most fundamental technique for a cursemancer. Those who had not achieved the initial success in this technique would not be allowed to wander into the void of desire. When the divine thought separation technique reached the initial success, one would be able to divide one's own divine thoughts into several parts and use the separated divine thoughts to replace the danger of one's own body. This technique was very magical and would not be taught to anyone who was not a direct disciple. It was impossible for anyone who was not a cursemancer to know about it. However, this magical technique had been passed down since ancient times. Therefore, when a cursemancer practiced, every step forward was accompanied by endless danger. One careless step could lead to eternal damnation in the blink of an eye. Today, I'll deal with you once and for all. I'll get rid of this parasite. Deshirtion thought to himself. A touch of determination flashed across his eyebrows. He had not completely erased the curse mark before. Firstly, it was a matter of time. Secondly, it did not bring any great loss to him. However, the appearance of the bronze coffin made him feel like he had to completely eliminate this threat. In order to avoid those kinds of sneak attacks appearing one after another, he also didn't want his every move to be under the surveillance of others. The instant the bronze coffin left, such a thought appeared in his mind. Since he had already made up his mind, he didn't want to have the slightest hesitation. He immediately decided to go into seclusion. In the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, he had plenty of time to search for the curse mark. TSK, Deshirtion, no wonder you have today's achievements. Once you make a decision, you do it without hesitation. This kind of decisive action is the easiest way to become an ambitious and ruthless person. You are decisive and meticulous. You have the potential to become an expert. However, if I'm not wrong, the curse on you should be the most commonly used curse among cursemancers. Soul Eater. Ming's voice suddenly appeared in Deshirtion's mind. He was about to use his divine thoughts to search for the curse mark when Deshirtion was about to stop. Soul Eater. Sakra's thoughts turned, and he said, "This curse didn't display any powerful means on my body. At best, it's only a kind of curse technique used to track and search to lock onto the location. How could it have such a strange name? Could it be that the curse is incomplete? Haha, I have to say that your brain is very flexible. You actually thought of this in a flash." Ming let out a strange cry and said, "All those years ago, this soul devour technique was a technique that every single cursemancer was capable of. When it was executed, it didn't just possess the ability to track, search, lock onto one's location, and so on and so forth. The most domineering aspect of this technique was that so long as its owner utilized it, it would be like a myriad of ants gnawing away at one's soul. It wouldn't take one's life for a short period of time, but it would cause extreme pain. The pain of having a myriad of ants gnawing away at one's soul caused countless people to take their own lives before anyone else could do anything. But from the looks of it, the one who used the curse wasn't a real cursemancer at all. The ability to track and search was already the limit. Otherwise, even if you could absorb the power of desire, you would still be in trouble. Ming's description made one's heart turn cold, but one had to admit that this technique was definitely a very good technique if it was used well. Since it has such power, then all the more reason for me to control it. Sakura smiled indifferently, and the divine light in his eyes became even more resolute. He closed his eyes, and his hands formed a strange hand seal. The shape of the hand seal was like a lotus, and the moment it was formed, the power of desire in the surroundings gathered towards the position of the hand seal. In an instant, his divine sense quickly entered his body, turning into thousands of strands, and quickly searched every inch of his flesh and blood. He wanted to find the source of the curse mark and absorb it for his own use. Bang! In the quiet room on the Five Elements peak, Deng Tianhua slammed his palm heavily on the ground. The power from his palm blasted a huge, deep pit in the ground. In front of him, the bronze coffin that attacked Di Shirtian was floating. The countless talismans on the bronze coffin that were glowing with divine light had dimmed and become extremely illusory, as if they could be destroyed at any time. It seemed very weak. How could this be? Could it be that the demon has the same cultivation as the 8 great demon kings? Impossible. How could he resist the silver-armored corpse that I raised with this bronze coffin that is the best at raising corpses from the ruins? He even damaged the bronze coffin to such an extent that even the talismans are about to collapse. What kind of strength does that demon have? Deng Tianhua screamed hysterically in this empty, quiet room with a ferocious face. With a trace of madness in his eyes, he stared at the bronze coffin. After a long time, he sneered, "Good, good, good. Don't be so smug. That freak most likely came here for the immortal demon duel. Since he couldn't even kill you with a sneak attack, then I'll show you what's good for you in Skysplit Pagoda. I'll make sure you don't have a good death." That voice came out from the gaps between his teeth. It could be seen how deep the hatred in his heart was. At this moment, in the guest room of the Five Elements sect that was used to entertain other sects, there was a middle-aged man wearing a blood-red robe. Blood clouds surged around his body as he spat out a ray of blood-red light. In front of him, a blood-red banner floated. A large amount of blood-red aura continuously surged into the banner. As the banner fluttered, it stirred up the air and let out a strange whistle. Suddenly, the blood-red cloud on the banner surged and a blood-red figure appeared. This blood-red figure's appearance was very similar to the middle-aged man in front of him, as if they were made from the same mold. However, one was young, while the other was old and dignified. "Father, father, you must save me. I don't want to stay in this damned blood cloud banner for the rest of my life." The blood-red figure appeared and looked at the blood-red robed man in front of him. He opened his mouth and loudly cried out. His voice was filled with tears of blood, making people who heard it feel sorrowful. "My son, don't worry. Father will definitely let you be reborn again. All these years, I have been preparing a perfect body for you. Even if I have to pay a great price, I will let you obtain a blood god's body that is most suitable for cultivating my sect's great technique. Now, all that is missing is all kinds of powerful blood to condense the blood god's body. You will definitely be able to find it in Tong Tian Tower. It won't be long before you can be resurrected again and obtain a new life. Moreover, once you are reborn, you will have the powerful cultivation of a nascent soul." The blood-red robed man looked at the blood-red figure with a deep affection in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to give all of his precious things to the other party. "Father, revenge. You must avenge your son's death. Di Shirtian, I want to eat your flesh and drink your blood." The blood-red figure's face was malevolent as he let out a series of hysterical roars. That roar was filled with dense hatred that couldn't be dispersed. Don't worry. Father has already investigated Di Shirtian. Although your senior brother Di Shirtian entered the devil path in the Zither Music Valley and is still missing, he has exposed his identity. He is a demon clan. Moreover, he is a demon king who has condensed his Niden. If nothing unexpected happens, Father will be able to find traces of him this time. When the time comes, I will personally capture him for you so that you can avenge your own blood feud. I will make you a blood sacrifice for your rebirth. The blood-red robed man's eyes flashed with a thick, evil aura, carrying with it a fierce and fierce light. He fully displayed the power of a ferocious demon. Father, you must not be careless. That Deshertion is extremely strange. When I first saw him, he directly emerged from the ground. His body was filled with a strange sadness. Even I fell into his trap and died. If it wasn't for Father's life-saving treasure, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see you again today. So, Father, you must be very careful. Shuaini had deep feelings for his father after all, and hurriedly reminded him. He was afraid that his father would be at a disadvantage. Gradually, Deshertion's enemies came one by one to the Five Elements mountain range. It was unknown whether it was a blessing or a curse. I finally found you. You actually merged into your blood. If I hadn't released all of my divine sense to seal every inch of your flesh and blood, I'm afraid it would be difficult to find you. However, since I have found you, don't even think about escaping. Emperor, true force, born of desire, devouring brand. In the Linglong treasure pagoda, Deshertion used his divine sense to search every inch of flesh and blood. Every place he searched was covered with an invisible restriction, weaving an incomparably huge net, immediately sealing and wrapping all of his flesh and blood. He didn't let go of any inch of flesh and blood, thoroughly sweeping through in the form of a filter. Step by step, he was searching in the most cautious way. Finally, when he searched the heart meridian, he found a trace of seedling in the blood. Immediately, countless divine sense quickly gathered and trapped the cursed brand, sealing it at the heart meridian. The brand showed signs. Deshertion looked carefully and found that the brand in front of him was also a brand like a curse. However, compared to the 10 curse seals he had absorbed before, this brand was not only simple, but also extremely illusory, as if it was not complete and some part was missing. It was constantly changing its shape, very strange. It looked as if it would break at any time, but tenaciously existed. Even if it was trapped, it still wanted to escape. So the brand is not complete and is missing a part. No wonder it only has such a little power. Watch me devour you. Deshertion's mind moved, and the Emperor True Force immediately turned into a fierce tiger, pouncing and swallowing the brand on the spot. He turned and quickly returned to the demon mansion. The Emperor True Force itself contained the power of desire. In its essence, it had the characteristics of desire. Compared to the power of desire, it was even more mysterious and beyond. Once the brand was wrapped up, it was as if it had seen a king. It did not dare to resist at all, obediently not daring to move, and was directly brought into the demon mansion, arriving in the air above the third grade Black Lotus. The 10 mysterious curse seals on the Black Lotus seemed to have sensed something and flew into the air one after another. Today I suddenly have to face a choice that affects my life. My heart is full of confusion and uneasiness. This kind of feeling I have never felt before. So annoying, so distressing. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 362. Every single one of these 10 seals was perfect and flawless. They were a complete whole, and the aura within them was both profound and restrained. It was as if they were a whole of their own. They were constantly changing their shape and circulating rapidly, causing others to be unable to easily grasp their aura and profound trajectories. Each of them had a unique aura that belonged to them. At this moment, they all flew out of the third grade Black Lotus at the same time. No, to say that they completely left the Black Lotus was actually not very appropriate. Or rather, they were a kind of projection of the seals, a kind of shadow image, which could be seen as clones. The real body was still embedded in the Black Lotus, flickering with traces of strange light. As soon as these seal clones came out, they immediately surrounded the divine tiger formed by the Imperial True Force. The divine tiger opened its mouth and spat out the seal that was swallowed into its stomach before immediately spat out. Then, the divine tiger's entire body collapsed, turning into a pure imperial true force that entered the Black Lotus. At the same time, the 10 seals constantly circled around the seal without any pattern, tightly surrounding it. At the same time, this kind of rotation speed became faster and faster, turning into a black vortex. In the middle of the vortex, a flame emerged without warning. This flame was incomparably black, constantly jumping. But if one looked carefully, they would discover that while this flame jumped, there were actually seals flickering alternately inside. It was as if this flame was a mysterious flame formed by the fusion of runes. At the same time, if one looked again, they would discover that the power of desire that rushed into D. Shurtian's body was like firewood, constantly rushing into this flame. The more it rushed in, the more the flame burned, and the more prosperous it became. The tattered brand was wrapped and bound in the air above the flame. It was constantly being burned and tempered by the flame. It could be seen that under the burning of the flame, the seal actually seemed to have a mind of its own, wanting to break free. However, from within the flames, strands of mysterious black threads emerged and continuously entered the brand. Under the burning of the flame, this kind of struggling movement became weaker and weaker, not knowing when there seemed to be a crisp sound like glass shattering coming from the seal. Erasing the connection between the brand and its original owner is the first step. Next, I have to prepare to fuse the undying obsession of the power of desire with the soul-devouring curse to make up for the defect. Sakra's heart didn't relax because of this. The flame formed by the fusion of 10 curse seals was called All-Evil Origin Flame among curse masters. It was a unique flame of curse masters. As long as 2 curse seals were fused together in a marvelous trajectory, it could be formed. However, the more curse seals that were condensed, the more powerful the all-evil origin flame would be. It was the only flame that was used to condense curse seals. It burned the power of desire and tempered the inextinguishable obsession that was needed to smelt the curse seals. Then, it would fuse the inextinguishable obsession that was needed to smelt the curse seals and truly form one's own curse seals. Now, he was doing exactly that. What was dangerous for others was extremely easy for him. He could easily absorb as much desire power as he wanted. For example, the Cursemancers didn't dare to do this. They used the extremely precious and strange 100 Desires demonic beads as firewood for the all-evil origin flame. It was the demonic beads condensed from the infinite desire power that true Lord Ku Rong used to trick Di Shurtian when he was crossing the tribulation. Otherwise, who would dare to directly absorb the desire power? Therefore, Di Shurtian really had a unique advantage in the cultivation of Cursemancers. This advantage was definitely something that countless Cursemancers dreamed of. He focused all his energy on the all-evil origin flame in front of him and watched as the desire power entered it. Then, tiny black threads floated out and fused with the broken seal above. If someone were to see this at this moment, they would discover that the broken seal above the all-evil origin flame was being perfected bit by bit, as if it was slowly making up for the missing part. This speed wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. This situation continued for a long time. Outside his body, a large amount of the power of heaven and earth and the desire power surged into his body and enveloped him. It was as if he was in a strange vortex. It was extremely incredible. A year passed quietly in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. Chi-Chi, his eyes, which had been closed for an unknown number of years, suddenly opened. 2 sharp beams of light shot out from his deep eyes. They actually shot out 3 feet and pierced the void, producing a series of intense sounds. Di Shurtian, you are indeed blessed by the heavens. You can easily grasp the desire power that is both a spirit pill and a poison for Cursemancers. Even a high-level Cursemancer wouldn't be able to condense a new curse seal without at least 5 to 6 years. You can actually condense the soul-devouring curse seal completely in just 1 year. Even I have to admire you. Ming's congratulatory words immediately entered his mind. There was deep astonishment and jealousy in his words. Indeed, Sakura's uniqueness was too abnormal. He was able to absorb the power of desire without any problems. This kind of ability could completely allow him to practice spells. Many of the difficult hurdles that were difficult to cross were like nothing to him. It's much easier than I thought. Sakura indifferently extended his right hand. On the index finger of his right hand, countless black silks spurted out and condensed on his finger, transforming into a strange cursed seal. The cursed seal emitted a kind of suppressive aura towards the soul. The shape of the cursed seal was indeterminate. It rotated on the index finger, emitting a kind of demonic radiance. It made people feel that there was a very evil power flowing inside. This was the soul-devouring cursed seal. It was a complete cursed seal, not a broken one like Dang Tianhua's. If it was really used on someone, this cursed seal would enter the person's body like a parasite. As long as Di Shitian's mind moved, he could let the other party taste the terrible torture of having their soul devoured by thousands of ants. The cursed seal spun on his finger for a while, then it turned back into countless black threads and returned to his body. In the outside world, after 10 days, the desire power that had been pervading Di Shitian's cave residence disappeared in the blink of an eye. The seven sins demonic zither and the exquisite pagoda also disappeared without a trace. The cave that he had been in seclusion for 10 days suddenly opened. Pata! With a series of steady footsteps, Di Shitian walked out of the cave residence. He glanced ahead, and there was a slight look of surprise in his eyes, but returned to normal in the blink of an eye. As he walked, he said, "Brother Lung is also here. After parting at Smoke Wave Island, we meet again so soon. Di Shitian, you're really here. I lost you last time, and I'm not convinced. Come over and bet with me again. This time, it's not the kind of competition to find people. I want to bet with you on real gambling skills." In front, there was an empty area in the valley. At this moment, a group of young Monster Clan experts gathered here. Among them, Lung Wuqing, whom he had met in the secret realm, was among them. His original body was the ancient cold glass body. The cold air on his body could be clearly felt even from 3 feet away. In addition, there were 3 other young Monster Clan experts. One of them was wearing a gray robe. His eyes carried a kind of gloomy coldness. Even his expression appeared very hazy. His hidden eyes flashed with a fierce light from time to time, as if he was hiding a poisonous snake. He just stood there. If one did not look carefully, one would only feel that his body did not exist. The position he was standing in was very strange. It was under the shadow of an ancient tree. If one did not look for him deliberately, one would not even be able to find his trace. His aura was restrained, and there was not a trace of fluctuation. It felt as if he would blend into the shadow at any time. It was very strange. On the surface, he did not seem to be much of a threat, but if there was a need, he would definitely be like an assassin lurking in the dark and instantly launch a thunderous attack. Although this unknown Monster Clan expert was always in the shadow, he was the first one to attract Di Shitian's attention and vigilance. Interesting. Sakura silently memorized this young man's appearance in his mind as he once again sized up the second young expert. He didn't know what this young man was, but he could sense a majestic aura of water from him, as well as a kind of heaviness. His eyes were very small, like a pair of mung beans, but there was a shrewd light in them. At a glance, one could tell that this was an extremely shrewd young expert. The last one had a very strong smell of blood on him, and he was dressed in a bloody robe. Waves of fierce hostility flashed around him from time to time. Then there were the 3 dragon ladies. Di Shitian had seen them before. They were the 3 princesses of the Yamba Dragon Palace, Ao Qing, Ao Hong, and Ao Shui. They didn't seem to have any intention of returning to the Dragon Palace immediately. They followed behind the demons and had a lot of fun. When they were happy, they would help to cast the Call the Wind and Summon the Rain divine power to help the demons destroy the sect and destroy the array. The reason why the Monster Clan could destroy more than 100 sects in such a short time was because of their contribution. Seeing Sakura, Ao Qing's eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly rushed over and grabbed his arm while shouting excitedly. Her other hand reached into her chinkoan pouch, and when she took it out again, there was already a gambling tool in her hand. A dice cup. She shook it, and the dice in the dice cup made a crisp sound. No wonder she was the gambling girl, Ao Qing. No matter where she was, she would have all kinds of gambling tools. First Princess. Di Shirtian frowned slightly and said, I told you that I don't know how to gamble. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't refuse, I wouldn't have gambled with you. I think you should find someone else. Second Princess Ao Hong went up and looked Di Shirtian up and down. She said with interest, Big sister, so you've been thinking about him all this time. Ever since you mastered your gambling skills, the only person you lost to was him. But it seems like he's not willing to gamble with you again. You little girl. Don't mess around here. I'll definitely make him gamble with me again. I must win the last round. Otherwise, I won't be able to eat or sleep well. Nothing will go my way. Di Shirtian, I don't care. I must gamble with you again. Ao Qing stubbornly grabbed Di Shirtian's hand and did not let go. If he did not gamble with her, she would not let go. As for Ao Shui, a little lowly, she stood weakly at the side. She opened her eyes wide and looked at her big sister pulling a man together. Her clear eyes were filled with curiosity. Little sister Ao Qing. Shirtian really doesn't know anything about gambling. At this moment, the white fox saw that Sakura and Ao Qing were entangled together, and her expression changed slightly. Then, she chuckled and walked forward. She reached out and pulled Ao Qing's hand. Walking to the side, she said, Moreover, going to the Tower of Babel is the top priority now. The cultivators of the human race have already rushed there with their experts. Now that Sakura has come out of seclusion, it's time to set off. How about this? After we return from Tong Tian Tower, Big Sister will make the decision and let Shirtian gamble with you once. What do you think? Xiao Yin smiled sweetly. With just a few words, she had planned everything out in an instant. Hearing this, Ao Qing wanted to disagree, but she couldn't find any words to refute him in this moment. That's right, 3 princesses. The trip to Tong Tian Tower is of great importance to our demon clan. There can't be any mistakes. I hope the first princess can understand. The Rock Demon King waved his feather fan and walked up with a smile. He looked a little calm, but when these words fell into the ears of Ao Qing and the others, the weight was particularly different. She secretly said, Before we came out, Father said that in today's demon clan, except for those old monsters who have long been dead or alive, the 8 great demon kings are the top existences. Especially the leader of the demon kings, the Rock Demon King, is even more unfathomable. When we see him, we have to treat him as a junior. We can't be rash. Uncle Dapeng said so. How can Ao Qing not agree? Ao Qing hurriedly said with a trace of respect on her face. However, us 3 sisters have heard of the Tower of Babel from our father in the Dragon Palace before, but we have never seen it before. I wonder if we can go with him this time to broaden our horizons. The Rock Demon King hesitated slightly. He seemed to have some misgivings. Your identities are different. The Dragon Palace is respected. If there is any accident in Tong Tian Tower, I won't be able to explain it to your father. Uncle Dapeng, please don't worry. We sisters won't make it difficult for you. We will just be outside and won't go in. Ao Hong's eyes also lit up. She was very interested in Tong Tian Tower. When the Rock Demon King heard this, he smiled non-committally. He waved his feather fan and glanced at almost half of the young experts of the demon clan in front of him, including his silver-haired niece Xiao Yu. After a moment of silence, he said, Everyone, our demon clan has been oppressed by the immortal cultivation world for tens of thousands of years, but also forced our clan to be more united than ever. This time, the immortal cultivation world wants to destroy our foundation. Who knows how many descendants of the demon clan have been killed? Speaking of which, you're the most elite young generation of the demon clan. Your future is limitless. We shouldn't let you go to Tong Tian Tower, that dangerous place. He took a deep breath, and the smile on his face disappeared. His voice was very serious as he continued. If it was just a battle between immortal and demon clans, it would be fine if we lost. As long as our clan can continue, our descendants can still reproduce, and we can still have the next generation, I will never take this risk. However, this time, we received news about the demon transformation pool in Tong Tian Tower. As a last resort, the future of the demon clan depends on you. His voice became more and more serious. After he finished speaking, the Rock Demon King actually bowed to Di, Shirtian, and the others. This bow didn't even give them a chance to stop it. It could be seen that although Lung Wuqing and the others didn't say anything, their hearts were definitely not calm. The silver-haired youth walked forward and said seriously, "Brother Di, you are all young experts of the demon clan. The demon transformation pool is the key to the continuation of the demon clan's Tao of inheritance. If there is a chance, we will pay any price. I hope that one of you can bring it out. If you find it, as long as you spread the news, we old guys will break the rules and help you in tower. However, we must prioritize our lives. Don't force it. You will all be the treasures of the demon clan." From the instructions of the Rock Demon King and the others, it could be felt that there was a heavy burden on their shoulders. As the competition was approaching, a large number of experts in the cultivation world had already rushed to the Tower of Babel. On this side, they were actually waiting for Di Shirtian. Now that he had come out of seclusion, it was time to set off. However, not all of the 8 demon kings went. Only the Rock Demon King, the silver-haired youth, and Bai who led them. The other demon kings were going to lead the other demon clansmen out of the 5 Elements mountain range. They found a safe and hidden place to settle down first. They didn't want to suffer from some conspiracies here. As soon as they felt like setting off, they moved with the wind and thunder. Under the leadership of the Rock Demon King and the others, Di Shirtian took out the floating cloud boat as a mount. The group flew toward the southernmost side at the fastest speed. South, all the way south. With the speed of the floating cloud boat, under the control of the Rock Demon King, it was really like a stream of light passing through a mirror. In the blink of an eye, it had crossed thousands of mountains and tens of thousands of rivers. It was even faster than when Di Shirtian was driving it. They didn't even need to rest halfway and kept flying forward. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled tens of thousands of miles. However, at such a speed, they still flew straight forward for a full 5 days. Voila! Suddenly, on this day, a layer of water-like ripples appeared in front of the floating cloud boat that was flying at an extremely fast speed. It appeared out of thin air, and the floating cloud boat easily passed through it. Outside the water curtain, there was actually a territory of ice and snow. There was bone-chilling snow everywhere. However, as soon as they passed through the water curtain, the scenery in front of them suddenly changed. The floating cloud boat stopped. However, there were many Monster Clan experts on the boat. Each of them was a Monster King who had condensed a Monster Core. Logically speaking, they had a certain level of attainment in their temperament. However, when they saw the scene in front of them, they almost unanimously opened their mouths and sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Di Shirtian was no exception. Could this be the Tower of Babel? A pillar that supports the heavens. This is a pagoda that can support the heavens. Unbelievable. How tall is this pagoda? What appeared in front of Di Shirtian and the others was an incomparably huge divine pagoda. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens. It was the most inconceivable divine pagoda. The pagoda was so tall that they couldn't see the top of it at a glance. It was as if they could see a giant holding up the sky above them. The majestic atmosphere and vigorous place made them feel like they were suffocating in an instant. They felt like they would be crushed to pieces in an instant. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 363. Anyone, any race, any powerhouse. In front of this towering Tower of Babel, no matter how strong you were when you first saw it and stood under the tower, you would have the same feeling. Insignificant, extremely insignificant. No matter who it was, they would involuntarily feel that they were so insignificant compared to the Tower of Babel in front of them. This had nothing to do with whether one's strength was profound or not. Standing here, one would have such a feeling. Even if one was an unparalleled powerhouse, in front of the Tower of Babel, it was a giant and you were a child. It was this kind of indescribable feeling. Their first thought was absolutely unbelievable. In this world, there was actually such an inconceivable existence. What kind of pagoda could support the heavens and the earth? Fortunately, there was a strange restriction around the Tower of Babel itself, which prevented the appearance of the pagoda from appearing outside. Only after entering a certain area and passing through the restriction could one see it. Otherwise, on the continent, who knew how many people would prostrate themselves in worship of this pagoda? It was a miracle. Phew! The silver-haired man opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Looking at the Tower of Babel with a strange light in his eyes, he said, "It's really a Tower of Babel." It is said that this pagoda grew out of the ground. In the boundless universe, there are all kinds of strange things, but this pagoda in front of us is a real divine object. I don't know if this Tower of Babel can really reach the vault of heaven. This was the second time he had come here, but even if he had seen it once, the feeling of looking up at a great existence always existed in his heart. The doubts in his heart were no less than anyone else. However, he also knew his own limitations. This pagoda, even in ancient times, no one could explore its exact location. What was the origin of this pagoda? And where was the top of the pagoda? Even the unparalleled powerhouses were unable to give answers to the later generations. They only understood that it was a divine object in front of them. Under the pagoda, no existence could fly in the air. They could only fly up to a height of 20 to 30 feet. After the floating cloud ship came in, it was suppressed to this limit. This was a kind of invisible restriction. As long as one didn't have the ability to break the restriction, they would be bound by it. No one was an exception. This is Tong Tian Tower. Sakura gradually retracted his gaze. His face revealed an astonished expression as he muttered to himself. Before I saw it with my own eyes, I thought that the description I heard was exaggerated. Now that I've personally experienced the tower, I know that not only is it not exaggerated, it's even more mystical. The charm of the tower, if I don't see it with my own eyes, I can't use words to describe it. However, how many layers does this pagoda have? A strange thought suddenly appeared in his mind. You want to know how many levels this heaven-reaching tower had? Lunatic D, don't go crazy here. Dark's voice appeared in his mind and pulled him back from his reverie. The Tower of Babel is not like other places. Even if you cultivate the power of desire and succeed, you can still be lucky and have a small chance of success. However, there was no such thing as luck in Tong Tian Tower. No one could break the restrictions outside the pagoda. Inside the pagoda, each level was extremely vast. The life forms that lived inside were all extremely powerful. Just on the first level, you'd be lucky if you could keep your life. Back then, my master, the Emperor of the Underworld, had also trained here. With his unparalleled strength, he could only break through to the 9th level. This pagoda has more than 9 levels. In my opinion, before you become a demon saint, you'd better not have any ideas about coming here. Otherwise, you'll be seriously injured. You lunatic, although your actions are a little bold, your potential is indeed great. If you die before you become an expert, I won't be able to find another host who can help me find the Book of Underworld. Di Tian heard this and did not say anything. He just took a deep look at Tong Tian Tower. Then he retracted his gaze and looked around. He saw that there was an incomparably huge pagoda door in front of him. He did not know what the Tong Tian Tower was made of. It was simple and unadorned like an ordinary pagoda. Its surface was suffused with bursts of bronze luster. Time could not leave any traces on it. There were no seal scripts, nor was there the kind of treasure light that many treasures would have on their surface. It really looked like an ordinary bronze artifact. It looked very ordinary, but the area it occupied was so large that it was difficult to estimate. Just looking at the base of the tower, it was like looking at an incomparably huge square. In front of him was a towering bronze pagoda door, which was tightly closed. In front of the door, there were as many as thousands of cultivators gathered. They gathered in twos and threes and chatted with each other. From time to time, their eyes would glance at the pagoda door. Also, in front of them, there were clearly several cultivators who were full of a kind of expert pressure standing at the front. Judging from their auras, they were only one step away from transcending the tribulation. There were a total of 3. Seeing Tian and the others arrive. These 3 cultivators, who were obviously the leaders of the immortal cultivation world this time, looked at each other and stepped forward. They nodded to the Rock Demon King and Silver Hair, bowing slightly to show their courtesy, and said, "Rock Demon King, Nightmare King, Sky Fragrance Fox King." Tian Shu Zi of the High Heaven Sect greets the 3 Demon Kings. Tian Shu Zi himself had a cold and fierce aura, and his face was a little gloomy. He wore a starry robe and carried a simple ancient sword on his back. He stood in place, and there was a kind of fierce aura coming from him. If one's cultivation was not high enough, even their soul would be taken away. Behind him, there was actually an indescribably handsome man. Even those peerless beauties who showed disdain for their beauty would feel inferior in front of him. They would lose their luster and cover their faces before leaving. Not only was he elegant, but he also had a righteous aura. He also carried an ancient sword on his back like Tian Shuzi. "It's Zhong Yunfei." Tian glanced at him, and a figure that he had almost forgotten appeared in his mind. A light flashed in his eyes, and he looked at Tian Shuzi again and thought to himself, "Tian Shuzi? Tian Shu is the leader of the Big Dipper 7 Stars, also known as the Greedy Wolf, a fierce star. Since he is named after the Big Dipper 7 Stars, could it be that his secret art is related to the stars? There was a saying in ancient times that the Greedy Wolf star was a great evil. When the Greedy Wolf appeared, there would be war. It would stir up a storm of blood in the human world. Linian Sex Chu Xiang greets the 3 Demon Kings. The second was an old woman. Her face was full of wrinkles, and she held a walking stick in her hand. She looked like she was going to die at any time. When Sakura saw this, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. He really didn't know what day it was today. It seemed that all his enemies in the past had come. Wasn't this old woman the one who tried to ambush him in the secret realm and had her arm chopped off by him instead? Who else could she be? Her chopped-off arm had actually grown out again. It looked very strange. Behind her, there was also a woman of the younger generation. She was also very familiar. She was the Chu Kingdom's Princess Chu Yun, whom he had met several times. At this moment, she was standing behind the old woman with an affectionate look. Sect Master of the 5 Elements Sect, Deng Tianhua, greets the 3 Demon Kings. The third person was the Sect Master of the 5 Elements Sect, Deng Tianhua. At this moment, there was no malevolence on his body. He bowed calmly. It could be said that he was completely different from the malevolent face in the quiet room back then. However, when his gaze landed on Tian, a hidden fierce light flashed through his eyes. These are all going to enter the heaven-reaching tower. The Rock Demon King raised his eyes and glanced at the thousands of cultivators gathered in front of the tower. Most of them were above the nascent soul realm. There were cultivators of all levels, including the astral body realm, the spirit severing stage, and the unification stage. This force was an extremely huge force no matter where it was. However, in the heaven-reaching tower, if they were thrown in, not even a drop of water would splash out. Aren't you afraid that these people will never come out after they enter? He gently shook his snow-white feather fan. A strange light flashed as he said calmly, "Although Tong Tian Tower is mysterious and frightening, as long as you enter, your cultivation base will increase greatly after you come out. In the future, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. This battle with the Monster King side is a very good opportunity." Everyone here entered the pagoda willingly. Tian Shuzi said without a trace of emotion. 3 demon kings. The rules of the competition have already been discussed. My immortal realm will enter the tower together with your demon race experts. No one knows what the situation inside the tower is like. Once you enter, you must find the heaven-reaching stone if you want to come out. Whichever side finds the heaven-reaching stone first will be the winner. If you win, then the immortal realm will compensate you with the items we discussed before and release the captured demons. If we win, the captured demons will still be released, but your demon race must promise not to attack any other sect within the agreed time limit. The competition will be supervised by the master of the Linglong Pavilion, Yu Linglong. What do you think? As he spoke, he glanced at the demon race who came this time. It was different from the immortal realm's analysis. There were very few demon race who came. However, looking at the group of young demon kings who had already condensed their nadens, he became more serious. The difference between those who had condensed their nadens and those who hadn't was like heaven and earth. This time, the demon race sent 6 young demon kings. It was clear that they attached as much importance to this competition as the immortal realm. 6 young demon kings, plus Baihu and Tian Xiang. There were a total of 7 demon race who wanted to enter the tower. The rock demon king gave them a deep look, then looked at the group of women on the side. One of them was wearing a strange bamboo hat. A black veil hung down from the hat, covering her face. Even spiritual sense couldn't see through it. I only hope you can keep your promise. Otherwise, don't blame us for being shameless. His calm voice carried a trace of threat. All the immortal realm cultivators couldn't help but tremble. This time, the demon race's actions showed the immortal realm the terror of the 8 demon kings. If they really attacked without caring about anything, the damage they would cause would be immeasurable. Don't worry, demon king. Under the bamboo hat, a voice that seemed to be able to touch one's soul sounded. It was a woman. She said, ever since Linglong Pavilion was established, it has been tens of thousands of years. We have never been partial to any side, nor have we intervened in any battles. In terms of reputation, we still have some credibility. Yu Linglong can guarantee that once the results of the competition are out, those captured demon race members will be released immediately. Good. Silver Hair responded, since Linglong Pavilion is guaranteeing, we demon race naturally won't doubt it. Good. Then let me announce the start of the competition. Both sides, please enter the tower. Yu Linglong's crisp voice had just sounded. Suddenly, all the immortal realm cultivators and demon race members outside the tower looked at a remote corner in unison. Splash! In the seemingly empty void, mysterious ripples of water rippled out, and a burly figure walked out from the ripples of water. As soon as he came out, a strong, chilly wind blew directly in this area. Gray-white corpse chi constantly spread in all directions. On his back was a strange black coffin. 9 pitch-black iron chains emerged from the black coffin and wrapped around the burly man's body. As he moved, the iron chains dragged on the ground, making crisp, clanking sounds. There was no sense of vitality on his body. Only endless corpse chi pervaded the air. His empty, lifeless eyes scanned the surroundings. When he saw the huge tower door in front of him, he began to move. Dragging the pitch-black iron chains, he walked straight toward the tower door. With every step he took, the iron chains knocked on the ground, making crisp, clanking sounds. In everyone's ears, it was like a kind of demonic sound. One by one, they stared blankly at the strange, burly man in front of them who was wandering around with the black coffin on his back. Some of their faces faintly showed a kind of fear, and they kept swallowing saliva. Even their eyes were somewhat shifty. They secretly took a few steps back, as if they were afraid of disturbing him. Splash! The chains sounded as if they were pounding on the ground, as if they were pounding on their hearts. Bang! When he came to the huge tower door, the burly man waved his hand, and the iron chains tied to his arms slammed heavily on the door. A huge rumbling sound was emitted together with the creaking sound of the tower door opening. When the tower door opened, there was a void behind the door. This void was like a monster's existence. Everyone knew that once they entered, they would truly enter the interior of the Tower of Babel. But there was not even a trace of fluctuation on this burly man's body. Just like that, he walked into the void with the same pace as usual, and his figure mysteriously disappeared. Carrying a black coffin on his back, his body shrouded in corpse chi, and black chains wrapped around his body. This is the legendary corpse demon. The corpse demon actually came here and went to the Tower of Babel. Didn't they say that corpse demons don't have any intelligence? As long as you don't obstruct, don't provoke him, and don't come within 300 meters of him, nothing will happen. How did he know about the Tower of Babel and even enter it? Among the immortal cultivators, there was a lot of discussion. Looking at the void behind the tower door, most of them had a deep sense of fear in their eyes. The Rock Demon King and the silver-haired man looked at each other and saw a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. I didn't expect the legendary corpse demon to appear here. Could it be that this place has something to do with him? The Rock Demon King even stopped waving his feather fan. He said hesitantly, "The corpse demon is too mysterious." According to records, the corpse demon appeared like this. Since ancient times, there have been traces of him. Until now, anyone who has any ideas about him has all been fed to that strange black coffin of his. Even if he is seriously injured, he will reappear after a period of time. And those who have seriously injured him, no matter who they are, have all strangely died suddenly and miserably. Don't provoke him. The silver-haired man said with rare caution. His words were full of fear. There is a story called The Legend of the Corpse Demon. In the immortal cultivation world, when bringing people into the immortal cultivation world, they would always explain some precious experiences and stories of the world. Among them, the legend of the corpse demon was the most indispensable. Almost everyone could speak of it skillfully. But no matter who it was, when it came to the corpse demon, there was only one word to describe it: evil. Anyone who encountered it was unlucky. Anyone who provoked, it was no different from courting death. No matter how many people went, they would die. Even if they didn't die on the spot, after returning, they would die inexplicably sooner or later, as if they had suffered some strange curse. They would die inexplicably. Sometimes when they were walking outside, a meteor would fall on their heads and smash them to death on the spot. Standing on the ground, a spring would inexplicably appear under their feet, and spring water would emerge. That spring water might be the Nine Heavens weak water or the Huang Quan water. It would directly swallow you until not even your bones were left. Don't you think it's strange and terrifying? Most immortal cultivators grew up listening to the legend of the corpse demon. When they saw the main character, who wouldn't be so afraid that their legs and stomachs wouldn't tremble, cold sweat broke out on their heads. Ming, do you know the origin of the corpse demon? Di Tian was also a little curious about this mysterious corpse demon. He pondered and asked Ming in his mind, wanted to see if this old antique knew anything. I don't know. There was no corpse demon in the ancient times. You know what happened after the ancient times? I was imprisoned in this damn thing by some old fart. How would I know about this? Ming shouted in annoyance. When mentioning his current situation, he began to feel like he was going crazy. The battle begins. Enter the tower. Without saying much, Yu Linglong opened her mouth and said. Immediately, the cultivators from the world of immortal cultivators all walked in like a line. Although the corpse demon had suddenly appeared, they had no choice at this moment. Coming here meant that they were people who didn't care about life and death. One by one, they walked in calmly. The human race is really good at scheming. Most of the cultivators here are nearing the end of their lifespans and have little hope of stepping into the next realm. Entering the tower this time is probably the last gamble. If they die, they don't have much lifespan to begin with. If they can come out, they might have an opportunity to break through. How shrewd. The silver-haired man carefully glanced at the cultivators, and a hint of ridicule appeared at the corners of his mouth. If one didn't reach immortal ascension, one's lifespan would be exhausted one day. It was the same for immortals and Buddhas. It was just a matter of time. If one didn't reach the realm of immortality, who could live forever? under the lead of Tian Shuzi and the others. Over 1,000 cultivators entered the tower in a short time. On the demon's side, Baihu led the way to the tower door. Wait! Just as Baihu was about to enter the tower, Yu Linglong's voice sounded. If I remember correctly, there is an agreement in the battle. Demons who have reached the level of an ancient demon king are not allowed to enter the battle. The celestial fragrance fox king seems to be a little against the rules. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 364. There is no one in the world who did not know who the celestial fragrance fox monarch was. Her strength as one of the 8 great demon monarchs had already been outlined on the surface. Demon Monarch was a demon monarch that had truly reached the ancient demon monarch realm. The rules of the competition did not allow ancient demon monarchs of the demon clan to participate. However, Baihu's actions seemed to have violated the rules. Baihu's footsteps paused slightly. Then, Di Shurtian and the others beside her stopped at the same time and turned to look in Yu Linglong's direction. Baihu was wearing a snow-white palace robe and had a charm that could turn all living things upside down. She placed her hands lightly in front of her and held a ribbon. She turned around, and a soul-stirring smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. The people who were still outside the tower could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. Some men even stared blankly at her, bewitched. Every word and action of hers had a fatal charm. Looking at Yu Linglong's face hidden under the veil on her bamboo hat, she said, "It is said that the Linglong Pavilion is famous for its many treasures. Regardless of whether it is weapon refiners, alchemists, or array masters, most of them are included in the Linglong Pavilion. Since you're the current pavilion master of the Linglong Pavilion, you should know that I was seriously injured a few years ago. This time, even I have not completely recovered from the injury and regained my original demon monarch strength. Since that is the case, entering the tower should not be against the rules of the competition, right?" As soon as she said this, there was an uproar outside the tower. Although such a secret was not deliberately hidden, the matter of Baihu being hunted down by many immortal cultivators due to her injury back then was not a secret in some large sections. Many people knew about it. However, they did not expect that Baihu's injury had not completely recovered until now. Then, what was the thing that really caused her to suffer such a terrible injury back then? What kind of existence could cause an ancient demon monarch to suffer such a serious injury that she had not fully recovered from? Or was it immortal transformation? There were still quite a few immortal cultivators who had yet to enter. At this moment, they were all making guesses in their minds. One had to know that regardless of the merit laws, there was a division of realms in cultivation. For example, cultivators above the transcending tribulation stage and below the transcending tribulation stage were 2 completely different concepts. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. A tribulation transcendence cultivator would be able to emerge victorious even in the face of over 100 body integration cultivators. In cultivation, only by transcending the tribulation could one truly step into another world of cultivation. It was the same for the demon race. The ancient demon kings were fundamentally different from those before they arrived. No one knew what sort of expression Yu Linglong had on her face, which was blocked by the wall. She gently extended her right hand. The robe she wore was rather large, as if it covered her entire body. If anyone looked closely, they would discover that her skin was not as white as a normal woman's, but a faint purple. That faint purple instantly disappeared, and her skin returned to its normal white color. A strange jade archive appeared in her hand. The jade archive flashed and shone on Baihu's body. Then, she pondered for a moment and said, "Sister Tianxiang was indeed seriously injured and has not recovered her ancient demon monarch realm. According to the rules of the competition, entering the tower is not against the rules. Elder sister, please forgive me for what happened just now. I was too rash." No one knew what her jade archive was, but seemed to be able to detect Baihu's true cultivation. This was indeed shocking. In that case, our demon race will enter the tower. Baihu smiled meaningfully and glanced at the Jade Archive. Then, she signaled to Di Shirtian and entered the void. Her figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shirtian, after you enter, you have to be careful. Once you enter the tower, you will appear in a different area. If you encounter a strong savage beast, you must think of a way to avoid it. Baihu's ant-like voice sounded in Di Shirtian's ears, but it was very clear. It was a private message to him. Hearing this, he was slightly stunned, and a warm current emerged in his heart. Without saying anything, he followed her into the void. As soon as he entered, his whole body seemed to move forward involuntarily. It was not that he wanted to move, but the surrounding space was moving on its own. It pushed him over. This was a kind of spatial power, and it was this strange push that caused the scene in front of him to change suddenly. Oh no! When he saw the object, he only felt that his entire body was suddenly under an extremely heavy pressure, and his body fell down with a loud bang. It was as if the entire space contained an invisible pressure. He appeared in midair, and when this inexplicable pressure pressed down on his body, it was no different from a weight in water, and he fell down heavily. This change came too suddenly. Even if Sakura had already made preparations before he came in and even had the intention to directly face the savage beasts, but no matter how he thought about it, he would never have thought that such a heavy pressure would suddenly be exerted on his body. Before he could react, he was hit and fell straight to the ground. Bang! Gotcha! There was a muffled sound of collision with an object. It was mixed with the sound of something breaking under him. With this smash, Di Shirtian's body was much stronger than that of ordinary demons, but he felt that his internal organs were vibrating violently, and there was an extremely intense pain. It was obvious that the force of the smash was terrifying. Something seems to have broken. These were not what he was concerned about. Instead, he could not help but be surprised by the strange sound of something breaking. He quickly looked down and could not help but be stunned. He did not expect that the place where he fell was not the ground, but an extremely strong and ancient towering tree. Moreover, the place where he fell was an extremely huge nest, which looked like a bird's nest made by some kind of birds. It was so big that even if 10 people were to lie down here at the same time, it would still be extremely spacious. But in this nest, there were 2 huge grayish-white eggs that were more than a meter tall. If one did not look carefully, one would think that it was just a big rock. If it were just 2 eggs, it would not be a big deal. But the problem was that one of the eggs was right under him. Moreover, on the eggshell, there were cracks, with the place where he fell as the center, like a spider web, densely spreading across the entire egg. Crisp cracking sounds could be heard continuously. Pata! Di Shirtian's reaction was not slow. Almost in an instant, one hand pushed against the egg, and his body straightened. He fell from the egg and landed on the nest, looking at the big egg in front of him that was already full of cracks. There was a hint of a bitter smile in his eyes. Big trouble. Muttering to himself, Di Shirtian gently shook his head. He did not expect that the heaven-reaching tower would be so strange. The gravity here was completely different from the outside world. The difference in gravity had reached the limit of 10 times. 1 to 10, the gravity here was 10 times stronger than the outside world. If an ordinary person rashly entered here, they would definitely be crushed into a meat patty in the first second and be crushed into powder. The contrast was too great. Even with his current strength, he was careless and fell from the air on the spot. Until now, he felt like there was a mountain pressing down on his body. Even the air around him was filled with pressure, causing his body to be somewhat sluggish. Under this kind of gravity, the suppression on his strength was not small. Before he could adapt to it, it would be considered good if he could only use 70% of his combat strength. SK, I almost forgot to tell you that the gravity in the heaven-reaching tower is different from the outside world. The first level has 10 times the gravity. If you go up to the second level, it will be 50 times. Fortunately, you are in the first level. If you're in the second level, you'll be pressed down to the point that you can't even breathe, and even moving will be extremely difficult. However, I didn't expect you to be so unlucky to fall on a savage beast egg. This egg is definitely going to be destroyed. Once their parents find out, they will not rest until you're dead. Boy, you're on your own now." The strange voice of Dark resounded in his mind. The corner of D. Shirtian's mouth revealed a trace of a bitter smile. However, it disappeared in an instant and was replaced with a trace of ruthlessness. His gaze landed on the cracked and intact egg in front of him, and he coldly spat out a sentence. "Humph, since I've come to the heaven-reaching tower, this king does not have the extravagant hope of getting along with savage beasts. So what if I become enemies with the parents of these two eggs? At most, I will kill them as well. Since this egg is broken, that is even better. Savage beasts are extremely powerful. This egg definitely contains an extremely large amount of energy. In for a penny, in for a pound. Let me eat it to fill my stomach." He never thought that there would be any possibility of friendly relations with savage beasts. Now that he had broken the egg, he would definitely form an irreconcilable grudge with the owner of this nest. Since that was the case, he had even less scruples. Not only did he break the egg, he would also eat this egg as well as eat it to fill his stomach. "Gotcha." D. Shirtian pulled out the tiger soul and cut a hole in the already cracked egg. This eggshell was extremely hard. Even with the sharpness of the tiger soul, it was somewhat difficult to cut it open. After opening a hole in the egg, he looked inside and saw that the egg was actually a lump of amber egg white. The egg white emitted a trace of enticing fragrance. Gulp! Under the temptation of this exotic fragrance, even with his mental fortitude, he could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. What kind of egg is this? Just this fragrance alone is comparable to any delicacy. A thought flashed in Sakra's mind. Without even thinking, he moved his head over and opened his mouth to suck into the opening. The egg white in the egg was like amber. After being sucked in, it immediately fell into his stomach. The boundless, delicious taste entered his mind from every part of his body. It was truly a supreme delicacy that he had never tasted before. Moreover, there was no need to chew. It directly slid down his throat and into his stomach. After taking the first bite, an uncontrollable feeling naturally rose in his body. He swallowed mouthful after mouthful into his stomach. In a few breaths, the 1-meter-tall giant egg was completely swallowed. After swallowing, D. Shirtian did not even wipe his mouth. With a wave of his hand, he put the eggshell and the other egg into his storage bag. He still felt that this was not safe. He wiped his forehead. A purple light burst out from the purple mark. In an instant, the storage bag was also sucked into the mysterious purple eye between his eyebrows. It completely covered all traces of aura. Then, he flipped over and jumped down the tree. Before he left, he put a fire on the nest. He completely erased all traces. He landed under the tree, turned around, and did not hesitate at all. Holding the tiger's soul, he waved it fiercely at the gigantic tree that was even bigger than a house. Relying on the incomparable sharpness of the tiger's soul, he dug a hole in the ancient tree in just a few moves. He hollowed out the tree and made it look like a treehouse. With a flash, he entered the tree and closed the bark that he had deliberately kept intact, sealing it up in an instant. He did not even put down restrictions. He was afraid that there would be fluctuations. He took out the Linglong treasure pagoda and turned around to rush into the pagoda. He rushed into the second layer of the Linglong treasure pagoda, as if his but was on fire. As soon as he entered, he did not think about anything. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and madly practiced the Royal Extreme Book. TSK, TSK. The crazy D is indeed the crazy D. These methods are really smooth. Smashing the egg was an accident, but eating it was ruthless. After eating it, he did not even let go of the rest. In the end, he even burned the nest down. But I like it. Once this kid is ruthless, he really does not care about anything. He did not even know the consequences of eating the egg and just swallowed it into his stomach. Let's see if you will suffer this time. Dart's voice sounded with a hint of schadenfreude. However, there was a sense of joy in his words. What kind of existence is a savage beast? I only ate an egg. How can there be such a huge amount of energy? At this moment, Tion could not help but exclaim in his heart. He could only feel a huge amount of energy gushing out his body. This energy was abnormally overbearing. It carried a brutal destructive power and crazily rushed into every inch of his body. It was full of tyrannical destructive power. Wherever it went, even with his current monster body, it was still heavily damaged. Thousands of holes appeared on his body. For a moment, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that in an egg there would be such a tyrannical energy. If it was not for the fact that the royal true force in his body was the royal tyrant's first true force, it would quickly circulate around his body while his body was being damaged. If he wanted to suppress that tyrannical energy, his entire monster body would have been damaged beyond recognition in an instant. If he was not careful, he might even explode. This was also why he anxiously hid the egg. He directly dug a hole under the nest and hid in it. He was afraid that this strange energy would bring irreparable damage to his body. He was even more afraid that if the monster's parents came back and faced them in this state, it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were courting death. Humph! A mere egg has already been swallowed by this king, yet you're still so restless. Today, I want to see if your beast strength is more tyrannical or if my royal true power is stronger. A strange seal was quickly formed in his hand. His whole body emitted a domineering aura of supremacy. In the tower, countless amounts of heaven and earth spirit chi crazily poured into his body. His mind was immersed in his body. He revolved his true power, forming a large net. He wanted to surround and suppress that incomparably huge and tyrannical energy and stop it from continuously destroying things. Not to mention that Tion was suddenly forced to go into seclusion because of a strange egg. He did not even have time to investigate the situation in the Tong Tian Tower. It was hard to say whether he was lucky or unlucky. However, because he smashed an egg, he directly swallowed it into his stomach as a meal, just as he hid well and entered the exquisite treasure pagoda. In the sky, two huge figures rushed towards the bird's nest like lightning. Roar! Two incomparably huge, strange birds appeared in the sky. The strange birds were incomparably huge. Their wings were dozens of feet wide when they spread out their wings. Their wings were extraordinary and extremely strange. They were covered with sharp bone spikes. On each wing, there was a sharp claw that flickered with a metallic luster. There were no feathers on their wings. They were made of flesh. However, behind their tails, there were 3 different colored long feathers. One was purple, one was red, and the last one was blue. The 3 feathers flickered with divine light. They carried a strong pressure. From afar, they rushed to the location where Tion stole the eggs. Looking at the burning bird's nest, there was nothing in the nest. The 2 strange birds' eyes turned red on the spot. They raised their necks and let out a shrill cry that could tear apart gold and stone. In the sound, there was a boundless anger that seemed to want to destroy everything. Boom! The slightly bigger strange bird flapped its strange wings crazily. Suddenly, 2 terrifying hurricanes formed under its wings. Countless terrifying wind blades flew out from the hurricanes. Everything in the surroundings was bombarded with destructive power. If Sakura could see it with his own eyes at this moment, he would realize how terrifying this hurricane was. Countless wind blades danced in the air, cutting those towering ancient trees that had grown for God knows how many years into countless pieces. Wherever the hurricane passed, everything was turned into dust. Roar! Furious cries tore through the air, piercing through the sky and covering a distance of tens of thousands of kilometers. Within this range, all the savage beasts roared in unison. Countless savage beasts charged madly into every inch of the area with bloodshot eyes. The entire forest seemed to have completely rioted in an instant. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The entire air was filled with a violent aura. What's going on? Why are the savage beasts suddenly rioting? Not Good. There was an immortal cultivator in this area who was at the spirit-severing stage. When he came in, he was caught off guard by the gravity. However, after a short period of adaptation, he stood on the ground and began to observe his surroundings. However, he did not expect to suddenly hear a terrifying screech that could tear apart gold and stone. In an instant, it was deafening. Before he could figure out what was going on, he was dumbfounded as he looked at the unbelievable scene before him. A group of savage beasts that he had never seen before. There were as many as thousands of them. Each of them was incomparably huge. With red eyes, they madly charged at him with an earth-shattering force. Even the ground under his feet was shaking violently. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.